Hello, friends. Today's guest on the podcast is Jasna Hodžić. Jasna is part writer, part scientific researcher, and part badass rock climber. Jasna hails from the Northwest and currently lives in her van full-time, traveling and rock climbing, while also working on a PhD from the School of Environmental and Forest Sciences at the University of Washington. Jasna has climbed half a dozen 514s up to 14B, 5 of which were in the last year. She's also climbed 13B trad and bouldered V10, and based on her trajectory, it seems like she is just getting started. She's also incredibly humble and is probably very embarrassed listening to this. We talked about her process of projecting and sending her first 14A to Bolt or Not to Be at Smith Rock at a time when the route was grades harder than anything else she had climbed. And we talked about how training on rock and practicing her anti-style helped her climb a route called Voodoo, her first 14B, which she sent just last month. We also talked about 3 separate and very unique setbacks Jasna has faced over the years, including a misdiagnosed finger injury, a rare condition called compartment syndrome, as well as her experience with RED-S, which stands for Relative Energy Deficiency in Sport. We also talked about favorite books, some of the articles she's had published in magazines and online, as well as how she uses writing and specifically her blog to process the gunk in her head and why she feels it is important for her to share those thoughts with the world. Jasna has a ton of energy. I had a great time talking to her, and I think this turned out to be a super fun episode. We were all over the place. It was a great time. Please enjoy this fun and energetic conversation with Jasna Hodžić.
Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it.
Do you have a heater?
I got a little propane heater.
Oh, okay. You don't got
a little
the
buddy.
little model buddy.
What do you have?
I have the S-Bar.
What is
the
that?
diesel heater.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
You know what that is, right? Like it takes diesel from your engine.
That
It's
seems
really
like
nice.
a worthy upgrade.
It's expensive for sure, but it's really nice.
Have you ever thought about a wood stove?
So have you
Someone
met
was-
Amity and Connor Warm?
No.
They have one in their van.
Okay.
And it's just like, it's really cool looking, but I feel like it takes up way too much space.
Right.
I'm not trying to like be John Muir here in my van, but it does look like pretty, and I'm sure it probably does a better job. I mean, honestly. I mean,
It
maybe
sounds
not.
so cozy and amazing.
Yeah.
But same. I'm like, it would
It would
probably
be
go
like
there,
yeah.
and then it would be all up in the way of
That's where theirs
everything
is.
all the time.
Like I went in their van once, and they did it themselves, and it's gorgeous. They did a really good job. But I remember just being kind of like, like, how do I get in here? But I mean, it works for them. That's the only one I've ever seen in real life. So maybe there's like permutations of that model. Maybe there's smaller ones, you know, like ProMaster size ones. They had like a
ProMaster
big
countertop
transit. Yeah.
wood stove. Set the counter on fire. They probably think about that, right?
One
They
time I
probably
turned my
plan for
oven.
that.
Like sometimes I like cook while driving.
You have an oven on?
You have an oven. in
Wait,
there.
say that again?
So sometimes I'll be like, I want potatoes, and I was like, God, it takes like, it's like I could drive to this interview and roast some potatoes at the same time. It's probably
That's brilliant.
not safe, but I keep the window open in case the propane just like kicks off, like and then you're like constantly like you're basically leaking propane.
Yeah, -1 safety point.
Yeah, but it's
Positive
pretty,
2 efficiency
Yeah, you
points.
could like, man, like if you're going on a real drive, you can make like a souffle or something. Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, but
Has it ever gone bad?
yeah, so no, not like bad, but one time I forgot that I put something in there for some reason. Like I was just like, oh shit, I need somebody to put this on in the oven. It was like plastic.
Oh, just like storage.
Yeah,
when
I
the
don't
oven was off.
normally do that
Uh-huh.
because of this reason. Then the plastic started melting,
Oh,
and I was like,
God.
oh shit, I could have
Yeah.
lit my van on fire because I was not present. But anyways,
The last roommate that I had at the last house I lived at in Bend, he got a new barbecue, and one of the first times I used it, he had like this black grill scraper thing.
Okay.
Big black handle, right? But like rubber covered metal,
Yeah,
whatever.
I know what you're talking about.
And he stored it in the back of the grill, like on the upper layer inside.
Oh gosh.
And so I just
Seems
like
problematic.
turned on the grill to like preheat it, and then there were like spouting flames coming out of this thing.
Yeah.
I just like obliterated his grill, and it took me like an entire Saturday to clean it.
Oh no.
Always peek inside and check the grill.
Yeah. And the oven.
Yeah, in the oven, in the van.
I don't even know. I think it was an ice cube tray. Yeah, because I was doing my contrast bathing for my finger at the time.
You make ice cubes in your van?
Yeah, I have like a little freezer.
Nice.
Yeah, it's enough for an ice cubes tray. And I think I had put something in the freezer, so I couldn't put the ice cube tray in the freezer. So then I took it out, put it in the oven, and then it melted. Yeah, that was what happened. See, I remember. Good time.
Cool. We are rolling. I wanted to see what happened. Silence.
Cool.
Hi, Jasna.
Hi.
Thanks for sitting down.
Yeah, no problem. I got the nicer seat.
I'm comfortable.
That's good.
I thought we could start with how you got into climbing. We were talking on the phone the other day, and I just have a note here that says hyper plus cute boys.
Yeah, I mean, that's all any 21-year-old girl in the prime of her life.
Pretty much sum it up?
Yeah, I mean, the first time I ever even knew climbing was like a thing was... Did you guys have like a high school party when you... Like a graduation party? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we had one too, like a grad party, and it was...
Played ping pong.
Yeah, ours had like a rock climbing wall in it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I remember
we had a big jumpy house too.
Yeah, it was. We probably had one of those too.
Yeah.
And I
rock climbing.
was like, oh, what's that? You know, and I like... There was this dude, I forget his name, but he was like Mr. like buff man, and he was like, you know, like...
In the yearbook.
Yeah, in the yearbook, he was Mr. Buff man. But I remember like going on the rock climbing wall, and we didn't know what the hell we were doing, right? We just... Basically, the game was like who could get up the fastest. No one in my high school had any knowledge of the actual sport. And I like crushed everybody, because including that guy. I remember he was so like offended because I was super light. I was like rail thin, and I just had a lot of energy. And that's like the first time I ever like was like, this was fun in my brain. And then I don't even know what I did that summer. And then I started college at UC
First time
Davis.
you'd ever done it?
Yeah, first time I'd ever done it.
Okay.
I was 18.
Yeah.
But like I said, we didn't really do it.
We
just like rainbowed up the wall as fast as we
chapped
could.
out vans.
I don't even remember who was belaying us. Like it must have been employees, right? I hope. Or there was auto belay. I don't even remember. Yeah, and then I went to college, UC Davis, and there was one in the gym, like in the rec. You know, kind of like at Western, right? You guys had one.
Same, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was just like, oh, I should try that again. And so it took me several months to try it again, and I did. And I also remember noticing that there was like a lot of cute boys like at the rock wall. You know what I mean? And so like both those, I was like, I remember that being fun, and there's a bunch of cute boys there. And I'm like, I have a lot of energy, so it was a good way to get energy out. But I did it for like a year, but it was like once a week.
Okay.
Like bouldering with people. Like I don't think I knew what a quick draw was for like a solid period of time, and then like I learned how to top rope. But it was really just like another activity. Like I was doing ultimate frisbee, and I was running and biking, and it was just like one of those other activities that was just more, it was almost more social than anything.
What year was this?
Okay, I started college. That was 2010 when I first touched a rock wall or whatever. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Good times. 10 years ago.
Yeah. When did you become more of a real rock climber?
What's a real rock climber?
A great question.
Yeah.
Intentionally ambiguous.
Yeah. You know, okay, so I think when I studied abroad in Spain.
Okay.
Yeah, so in 2013, I studied abroad for a year in Spain. And by that point, I was like, I liked rock climbing, and I met people. Actually, like, my social life started to revolve around a few people I met at that gym. And then I went to this new gym in Davis, or actually it wasn't new, it was new to me, the Rocknesium, where Beth Rodden started climbing, just a fun fact. Go Rocknesium. And I met people there, and we would go like once a month to like Tahoe or something and go top roping or whatever, occasionally lead climbing. And so when it came around time to pick where I wanted to study abroad, because I got a degree in Spanish, and so I was going to study abroad for a year, and I was between Spain or Chile or somewhere, I forget where. And what made me choose Spain was rock climbing. Okay. So I remember that. So there was something there, some interest there that was like, yeah, this matters enough to me that like this
Cute
is gonna
Spanish boys.
Okay, I'm not like you're barely. Yeah, that was 100% the only reason I was hoping to meet Antonio. Is he even Spanish? Never mind. I don't think he's actually Spanish. But yeah, so I went out there and met a bunch of people and was just like, wow, these people take climbing like they're way more into taking falls and trying hard and stuff, and I just got wrapped up in that world there. And then I remember my grade like jumped by like a million because I would actually take falls, and like people were trying things more than once, and the energy was really awesome. And I think that's where I got really kind of quite hooked.
Where was that? Where were you?
I was in Barcelona.
Okay.
So I lived in Barcelona, and then I met this guy, actually an American guy, at one of their like, they had like an apartment bouldering gym. It was such a sick gym.
Okay.
I mean, it was actually really dirty and dusty and disgusting.
Okay,
but
this
it was
is still all in a climbing gym in Barcelona.
So, well, I met this guy at the climbing gym.
Okay.
And like I said, it was dusty and dirty and not that great, but like you can go at any time you wanted, 24/7, one of those kind of gyms. I never encountered anything like that before. And I met this American guy there, and he was like, let me like introduce you to my friends, and he introduced me to his Spanish friends, and I got into that circle, and we would go out to Margalef and Sierrana and all Monsant, and so like I was like going to these world-class places. I had no idea that they were like these were the world-class places, you know, doing like 7As and 6Cs and 6B pluses and stuff.
Yeah.
And then we would travel like, and then that summer I went to France and like Seiyus and all these really cool crags that I really want to go to now. Again, that I'm like much better at rock climbing than I was back then. But it was just such an infectious scene. And then I came back and I was like, yeah, rock climbing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you have plans to go back to those places?
Yeah, I have been back. I went back to Spain several times.
Okay.
I haven't been back to Seiyus, or I went to France 2 years ago, but not to those same cliffs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've been back. I actually wanted to go this fall, but I don't know what's gonna happen now with like, the Rona.
Right.
But yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully.
So then I want to ask you about how you came onto my radar, because that was through a route called To Bolt or Not To Be. That is likely the most talked about route on the podcast.
It really is.
If people don't know what it is, it's a very historic and beautiful 514A at Smith Rock, first 514 in America. And when did you... Was that a couple years ago? 2018?
When I did it was 2018, yeah.
Okay.
Spring of 2018.
Was
April
that-
19th of 2018.
April 19th of
actually,
2018.
yeah.
Okay. Was that all in a season? Or had you
Yeah,
kinda...
that was in a season.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Okay, so at the time, I had met you, I think, like at the Churning Buttress or something.
Yeah, probably.
And I think you had climbed a handful of 513s at Smith, maybe like a couple 13Cs total.
Yeah, it's actually literally true. A couple, two. Yeah.
So then, there's kind of like this bubbling of talk about it a little bit. It's like, oh, Jasna's trying To Bolt or Not To Be. Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
And then like, a couple weeks later, it's like, holy shit, Jasna's doing really, really well on To Bolt or Not To Be. And people start paying more attention. I'm like, whoa, who is...
Yeah.
And then, oh my God, she sent it.
Yeah, through the grace of luck.
The grace of luck.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to me
Yeah.
to talk to you after the fact about it, and I'd be curious to dig into what it was about that route that put it on your radar. We were talking on the phone the other day, and you said something really interesting. You said, I never thought about the grade.
Yeah.
A lot of people put a lot of attention or weight into this thing that's like, oh my God, your first 514A when you hadn't climbed 13D yet.
Yeah.
But it seemed like it was so much more about that specific route.
Yeah, it really was. It is interesting because that's why the route is famous too, right? Like that's why it's famous. It's because it's America's first 514.
Right.
So you would think that if you're trying it, that's at least somewhat
That's attached.
in the equation. Yeah.
Right.
So I actually was thinking about this after we hung up, and I don't remember when I first even heard of that route. Like, did I see a photo or watch a video or whatever? But for some reason, at some point in my early climbing career, that route became in my head like the archetype of hard rock climbing. Like that to me was like, it was sustained. The holds are small, which I've always liked. It like rewards proper execution. And it climbs to like kind of the top of something. I mean, it doesn't really, but it doesn't just end in like the middle of some random wall. You know what I mean? You start at the ground and you end at the top, more or less. I mean, you could top it out if you really wanted to. And so I don't remember like what it was, like what moment in my life I like watched some video or saw some photo, but it just seemed like it got into my head as the archetype of all the traits I value most in a good rock climber, you need to have in abundance to do that route. You know what I'm saying? You had to have good footwork. You had to execute really well. You couldn't mess up. You had to have good endurance, good finger strength, and you got to the top of some beautiful buttress, right? And for some reason, it just like became this fascination that I had that I never really like worded or talked about. You know, it's not like I set it out as a goal.
Right.
Like, it's not like in 2015 I wrote down like I'm gonna do that route one day. It just became like, I don't know, this just vision of this route I really wanted to do before I even set foot in Oregon. You know, I'd never even seen it. I'd never even been to Smith Rocks, but it was this.
Wow.
Yeah, it was just like this. I only have 2 routes like that, right? And Tobolt was like the very first one.
I want to talk about both of them.
Okay. And they have similarities as
Yeah.
we'll go into later. It just became that route. And I don't even, like to me, it wasn't about 514A. It was about all those qualities I listed that you needed to have. And I remember when I first started trying it, people would come up to me and they'd be like, why don't you try Scarface? Which is like notoriously like, I guess easier. I don't know. I haven't been on it.
Allegedly. I
haven't
totally understand
I know.
that.
And I'm like, well, it wasn't even like I don't want to do Scarface. It was like, well, there's no way I could do that route. Like, that's how I would respond. Like, there's just no way I have the ability to do that route. Or Mr. Yuck. Or Chemical Ali. Or whatever 514A you want to put in there.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, I can't do that. That's 514A. Like, I swear to God, I said that kind of shit.
That's fascinating.
You know what I'm saying? And then people would look at me and they'd be like, what's wrong?
Yeah, as confused as I am right now.
Yeah, I know. I'm kind of confused now, too.
Yeah.
But it really, really was this beautiful moment in my life, actually. I've never, I don't think it's ever going to happen again. Because, like, every route I've done since, it's been a little bit about the grade. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I guess every new grade. You know what I'm saying? And I don't think it's ever going to happen again. I feel like I just like somehow had this like really healthy perspective that I wish I could learn from my former self, a little bit. But it really was like as hokey as it sounds.
Just pure inspiration.
It was just like pure like a dream. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I know it sounds really lame and like kind of cheesy, but it really was like that. Yeah.
Did you ever feel like the reactions that you were getting from other people did that ever affect you? Is that something you had to think about it all?
Yeah, it's funny because when you said this the other day on the phone, I was like, oh, wow, really? Like, I was oblivious to all of that. I think I was in my own
And it
head.
might just have been me. I was like, who is that? And what is she trying? And like, what has she done?
Don't get me wrong. I recall people saying certain things. Like,
yeah. I mean, we talked about this too. That route is impossible to miss.
Yeah.
You can see it from the parking lot. You can see it across the entire crag whenever anyone's at the top of to bolt or not to be. It's like, oh, who's trying to bolt?
Yeah.
We all go running over.
Yeah. So I definitely got interesting glares and people would say things to me, but I think it's going back to the fact that I was just so motivated to do it that it didn't even like register in my head. I was like, I just didn't notice. And the other thing was, I wasn't like living in Smith at the time. I was commuting from Seattle to do the route. Like, I wonder if my partner at the time, my friend Nick, he supported me the whole way. I wonder if he was more aware of this potential phenomenon than I was at the time, because I was just so like, we would figure out when we could go during the week. We would drive 6 hours one way to try the route. And I would try it like once or twice because the skin pain is such a thing. And then I would work.
The skin pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I would work and leave. And I feel like I didn't have any room to even notice, because it's just an engrossing process.
Yeah.
And that's not entirely true. When I first started it, I was on spring break. So I was there for a couple of weeks. But then when I kept coming back to work on it, it was all weekend warrior style.
Wow. Were you making steady progress the whole time? What was the process like actually working on it?
So I first tried it. I put a top rope on it.
Yeah.
Like, that's the way.
That's the way.
If anyone wants to try that route, I mean, like, I didn't even consider leaning it at first. Because I'm not, like... I think there's two kinds of people who could, like... Either you could be, like, like Mike Doyle or Jonathan Segrist or Nina Capress and just do it. Like, you're good enough that you're way stronger than that route. So it's no big deal. But if you're like me, like, I put a top rope on it because I didn't want to have to repeat moves in between the bolts, because it's not like you can clip up on that route. I just wanted to get an idea.
When you were learning it.
Yeah. So, so I put the top rope up once, did all the moves, and at that time, two things happened. One, I was like, this ride's even better than I thought. Like,
Sweet.
I put the top rope up on it, not intending to project it that season. I just wanted to know what it was all about.
Oh,
'Cause
interesting.
I had been climbing at Smith that winter, doing those weekend trips from Seattle.
Did
And
you do Rude Boys that season?
Yeah, I did Rude Boys that season. And
Yeah.
after I did Rude Boys, that's when I was like, okay, I'm curious. I just want to know what this route's about.
Okay.
Put the top rope up on it, and then those two things happened. Number one was I was just like, wait. I was like, this is just the best. I love this route. This is amazing. I need to do it.
Yeah.
And two, I did all the moves, which if you've talked to other people who've done that route or are working that route, it's not really... It's a good thing to do all the moves, but that route's about linking all the moves. And so it did give me a little bit of confidence, but none of those moves are like... It's not like a stop or crux or anything. So that's how I put the top rope on it, and then... The thing with me is that I like to give things a lot of tries in a day. Like a lot of tries in a day. That's how I do. And that route was particularly challenging because the skin pain is so rugged that I could try it maybe once every other day.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, it's really harsh on your skin.
Yeah.
Like way more than any other route I've experienced. And so I would basically do every other day on, day off, and I would try to pull once, maybe twice. Maybe.
Yeah.
So by the end of my 2-week spring break, I had spent a decent amount of time on it, but I'd only tried it a decent amount of time in Smith, but I only tried the route 10 times or something.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In terms of progress, I don't know how nerdy you want me to get here, but basically there's in my opinion, there's 3 distinct sections in the first half. To a bad rest, to a rest that you think is good when you're working on it, and then the time I actually got there, I was like, God, this isn't all that awesome. And then you have a 13A, 12D kind of finish.
Okay.
So when I left after spring break, which is March of 2018, I think I linked to the 6th bolt from the ground.
Okay.
And there are 14 bolts on that route. It was when I started linking past the 7th, because I think the hardest moves are between the 6th and the 7th.
Interesting.
Yeah, everyone says the 9th, right?
The 9th bolt, right.
That's the redpoint crux. But when I started linking past the 6th and 7th, that's when I started actually making pretty good gains. But I left that spring break being like, man, I only got to the 6th bolt. Maybe I should give up, because it was straight up going to be weekend warrior style. And it's such a condition dependent route. I was really worried about that. I was like, it's going to get too hot.
Yeah.
And I can't be here whenever I want.
Right.
I have to be here when I get time to be here, off of work.
Right.
So it was all just so stressful, but it worked out, obviously. But I came back. I took a week off, came back the next weekend, and I finally made it through that one little crux from the ground. And that's when the progress really started in terms of I would then consistently do that. And I would fall on something. A lot of times I would just slip off because the feet are really bad on that route. They're not edges. They're just these smedges.
Smudgy
Yeah.
smedges.
And,
I've never heard that. I like
Really?
it. Smudgy edges.
I definitely did not make that up. But
Smedges.
you can thank me.
Why is this new to me?
I don't know.
I live
especially
there.
you. Yeah, I know. Especially if you climb that Smith a lot. But
That's the perfect word.
oh man, I tore through so many shoes.
What were you wearing?
Muira's, the VSs.
The
I said,
women's?
if you're
The blue ones?
The blue ones.
Yeah.
I have 6 pairs of those, and they're all from that 6-week period in which I was working
Oh
on
my
bolt.
God.
Because the footwork was so important to me.
Yeah.
That there would be moments when I would slip off it for no reason, and
Yeah.
I would look at my shoe and it'd be an impeccable shoe, except for this tiny molecule of whatever rubber on this really
These are
specific part, and
done.
I'd be done, and I get a new pair.
Oh
and
my
I
God.
spent probably $1,000 on that
Holy
route.
shit.
Probably more if you count the gas and stuff, And
Yeah.
the day I sent was a new shoe.
Brand new.
I think my feet are forever morphed into the Mira shape. because of that
Straight
route.
out of the box?
I did 2 warm-ups that day.
Seriously?
normally-
First day climbing in them?
Yeah, first day climbing.
Wow.
The footwork is really important on that thing.
Right.
But anyways,
Did they not feel too stiff straight out of the box for the smedges?
yeah, somehow.
Personally, I feel like I want broken in shoes for smudgy stuff like
Well, that's
that.
the thing. I think because I had been wearing them so much that I would just break them in really quickly. And I also did a 3rd try that day. So, they were kind of broken in.
They're almost done.
Yeah, they're almost to
Throw
pull.
them in
They're
the garbage.
to throw them out. Yeah, no, I still have some iterations of those shoes because they
Wow.
were perfect for every other damn
Totally.
thing. Yeah, so I was set on shoes for a while.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, back to the progress question. Yeah, so there's this principal crux at the 9th bolt.
Yeah.
And there's like a rest there apparently. Isn't there like a silly little rest? I didn't use...
like a piano key, sort of one pad edge thing.
Yeah, so...
It would not be considered a rest in any other context.
Yeah, I actually didn't use it though because I use different beta than I think most people there because of my height, but whatever. And I linked, so when you get to the 10th bolt, you're pretty nervous because you've done all the hard rock climbing and you're like, okay, I have 4 more bolts of like 1 more crux, 4 more bolts of bigger moves, better feet, but still hard.
Mm-hmm.
I got to the 10th once before I sent, but I totally messed up my beta between the 9th and 10th and just like did some bullshit on the fly and somehow it worked.
Oh, wow.
And I got to that rest and I was like, well, I knew I wasn't gonna do it.
Yeah.
But I was really psyched because I was like, cool, if someone put an anchor right here, that's the hardest piece of rock climbing I've ever done. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I was like, and I remember talking about people, I looked behind me and there was a crowd of people.
Whoa.
And I was like, okay, this is intimidating. And then I totally punted like off the next move because I had no idea what I was doing because I hadn't really worked the top that much.
Wow.
Yeah.
Why?
Because I was so invested in the bottom half because it's so much harder.
Right.
That I would really try to dial it in. And I knew that once I figured it, like once I was like, okay, I can send this route, I would go and wrap from the top.
Okay.
And do the top a bunch so that I wouldn't have to waste my skin on the bottom.
So this was like a surprise try kind of.
This is a surprise try.
Yeah, yeah.
So then I like,
surprise breakthrough.
yeah, I went back to Seattle, I remember, and then I totally bailed on a bunch of people and a bunch of work for the week that I did it because the weather looked so good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was straight up. I remember it was like the day before my birthday, and like there was like a party being planned for me, and I just bailed. I bailed on my own birthday party. I was like, yeah, like this weather window looks really good. I made it to the 9th bolt last time, so and like no one knew what the fuck I was talking about, you know?
Right. These are non-climbers.
Yeah, not really. I mean,
stuff.
my roommate knew what was up because I was always leaving for Smith, so I just was like, okay, I'm just gonna like. I completely bailed on every other responsibility of my life, left my own birthday party, and I woke up on my birthday by myself in Skull Hollow. And it was like, better find a belayer. And yeah, I worked the top that day and then sent the next day.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
That's a great birthday present to yourself.
Yeah, 2 days later.
Amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
Wouldn't have happened if you'd eaten all that cake. And...
It wouldn't. I'm guaranteeing you it wouldn't have happened if I had it left because the next week it got hot.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, maybe...
Nice.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's pretty funny. Like, I mean, I'm psyched, but
right.
But like, there was some sacrifices that were made.
Yeah,
yeah. You know? Like, for those 6 weeks, like, all I did was to bolt and work.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not like it's a casual commute.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
What is it? 4 hours? 5 hours?
6 hours.
6 hours.
One way without traffic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't have done it without Nick, because he would come with me. My friend Nick.
Mm-hmm.
So go partners.
Go partners.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to hear the Mike Doyle story.
Oh, right. The Mike Doyle story.
And he's probably listening, so Mike.
Oh, that's not intimidating at all. Okay, so the day I did it, at that point I finally like was able to give more than 2 burns or 1 burn because my skin just got accustomed to it. And I remember I would warm up with tape on my tips and then I'd take the tape off for
on all of them.
No, God, no. Like basically like the 2 index fingers.
Okay.
So I would warm up with tape on my tips. It's like a strategy thing if anyone ever wants to try this.
Yeah.
And then I would
taking notes.
Yeah, I would climb to bolt without the tape. And
really quickly,
Yeah.
what did you warm up on for that?
heinous.
Okay.
So I started off warming up. Oh, heinous cling. Sorry, just saying heinous to like that sounds.
The
kinda-
12A or 12C?
Yeah. So there's a 12A heinous cling, and then if you go to the top, it's 12C, right?
2 sets of anchors, yeah.
Yeah. So I started off warming up on like the usual magic light and like overboard and all that, but
Okay.
I found that heinous cling was like a much reduced version of to bolt.
Totally.
Right?
Same exact angle.
Yeah, it's
similar
kind of
style.
interesting. There's like to bolt, and there's heinous, and there's darkness at noon, and there's to bolt.
12A, 13A, 14A.
There needs to be like a they
Yeah.
all kind of like stepping up from
Uh-huh.
one from the other. And you could put karate wall in there too if you really wanted to. But yeah, I warm up on heinous, but I would do the 12C crux. So I would do,
Okay.
and then I would like stop. I wouldn't go to the top every time because it's like, I think I went to the top once.
Okay.
So yeah, that's what I warmed up on. But that day I warmed up twice because I had new shoes.
Okay. You normally just do it once?
Yeah, normally I would just
And
do
then
it
get on
once.
to bolt.
Yeah, and then I would get into bolt. But yeah, Mike Doyle. So the reason I mentioned all this like about the number of goes was because it was my 3rd go of the day, and I had one hung for the very first time, they go before that.
Okay.
Because before I would never try the whole route because I would be like, gotta conserve skin.
Mm-hmm.
So I was there and I was like, man, the weather is really nice right now. It was just like perfect conditions. And I was looking at my skin. I was like, I don't think it's a good idea to go 3 times. But I was like, yeah, I'll just stop if it hurts too much, right? And so I'm booting up like at the base of the wall. And it's like 7 o'clock. It's like 7:30, something like that. Whatever time it would be like dusky at Smith Rock on April 19th, 2018. And Mike Doyle walks by with this other Mike, actually. And I didn't know Mike Doyle. Like, I've never talked to him really, and I kind of doubt he's gonna remember any of this. But like, I doubt he knows who I am.
Okay.
But I obviously recognize him because he's Mike Doyle. Like, he's a well-known climber. But he was also with someone I actually knew. And so the other Mike was asking me some questions about the route, and I was like answering them as I was booting up with my Muiras. And then Mike Doyle, he looks at me, and I know he'd done the route, and I knew he did it fast. And
there's something about the lighting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm getting there. So
okay,
for
you're getting
some
there.
reason, like in my memory, maybe it's just wrong. In my memory, Mike Doyle is like literally glowing because the sun was like going through Asterix Pass or whatever, and it was just this beautiful evening. And there's Mike Doyle, and he's looking at me, and he's like glowing, like he's just literally his angelic glow to him. And he looks at me, and he says, to do that route, you don't have to be 514A strong, but you have to be 514A good. And I was like, yeah, man, you're so right. And then I said, so, it's like, because he is right. That's why I could do it with my like 213Cs or whatever. And I couldn't do, because he's actually, that's like the best way to describe that route. And then he walked away. I never saw him again that season. So in my opinion, he just like appeared at the base of Topol, said that, and then just like vanished into the dust or whatever. But yeah, it was,
pulled out his wings and flew away.
I mean, it's straight up, he was like glowing. And I mean, maybe I could like hire him and he could just follow me around on my next big project and just show up and say something inspirational to me. But yeah, that was cool. I mean, it's a good way to sum the route up, for sure. You don't have to be 514 strong. Guaranteed. I mean, I wasn't.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And it made you a better climber?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
I can't imagine. I mean, the experience certainly did.
Yeah.
I never had experience like that before.
Yeah, I guess I don't even know why I asked that. I mean, I want to move on, and I want to move on to peace. And like, there's no better proof that it helped your climbing, at least in that specific style, right? Because then you go on to Tuolumne Meadows and you climb peace. This is like 2 months after Tybalt.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that was a very different experience from a whole season sieging Tybalt.
Yeah, peace went by quickly. So peace is that 13CD Ron Calc route on Meldicott in Tuolumne Meadows, right? And
vertical little knobs.
Vertical knob climbing, and there's that photo. Oh, who's took that photo? I used to know. God. That photo of Ron Calc. He's in the black streak, and he's locking off and doing that move, which is the last hard move of that route.
Okay.
And that was like one of those other routes that I wanted to do.
This is that second route.
Yeah, that second route that I wanted to do.
Epitomized hard rock climbing.
Yeah. So for some reason, I just thought of vertical climbing as hard rock climbing. And I've definitely branched out since then. But so I showed up in Tuolumne at the end of June. And we put a rope up on that. Again, top rope sessions for sure on that one. But we actually fixed the rope so we can mini T on it.
Mini traction.
Yeah, because it's like, I mean, it's on this huge dome. You can't like.
You were saying this was really interesting to me on the phone. It makes complete sense, but you were like, that you have to do it. That's the way to do it.
In my opinion. Yeah. I mean, it's just the most efficient way. I mean, both those routes, neither one of them are like dangerous, but they're not like, you can't like go in straight and clip up or whatever. It just makes so much more sense to like stick up your way up it, fix a line, and then work it out, because especially when they're skin intensive, if you fall at a crux or whatever, you gotta like do it again to get to the next bolt. It's just like, where's your skin out, where's your energy out? And it, like, in my opinion, the first few times, like, I just want like a macro view of the route, you know what I mean, just to see if I can do it. And so if I'm like stuck on one part, I can't just move on. Yeah, peace, I mini T'd on it 5 or 6 times before I pulled the rope and then went for the lead go.
And sent it your first
lead go. That was crazy.
Yeah.
So then I did it my first try, which was really cool. I mean, my first try leading it. Not first try ever. That would be That would be insane.
I just have a short little note here that says glacier polish.
Right, I forgot. So the thing about Peace is it's really long. Like I think it might be 50 meters long.
Do you connect like an intro pitch into it?
So to get to the base, so you got to get to Meldicott Dome. You do some like weird 5-6 thing that you can just solo up, and then you get to this huge ledge.
Okay.
And from that ledge, I mean that's your base camp, right? Like there's a bunch of routes. Peace, you do, I think the intro pitch is 10B or something. It's just Knobtown. It might be harder. I don't remember. It's not that long. You get to a set of anchors. So then the second pitch of Peace is the money pitch. That's
But you're not pitching it out.
I pitched it out.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, just for rope drag purposes and also rope length purposes.
And the second pitch is still 50 meters?
Yeah. I think it's somewhere between. So the reason I say that is because we had a 210 or 200 foot static line. And so we fixed it from the ground, from the ledge.
Okay.
So we did fix the 10 part, the 510 first pitch. So that's like how many meters is the 210? That's a lot of meters. That's like a 50 meter rope or something. Well, way more. That's like a 65 meter rope or something. So from the ledge, we could not reach the second anchors.
Wow.
Piece, right? So we fixed it to like these rando bolts right below the anchor. Okay. So,
right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So you see what I'm saying? When I was working on it, that worked because it had pieces of really distinct crux. So that's different than to bullet. And then it has a really bomber rest. And then it has this like 512 climbing that then culminates like a 513 redpoint move. And then you're in this scoop, where like a no-hand scoop. And that's where the rope was fixed. So for working it, it was fine because all the hard sections were accounted for, right? So when I wanted to lead it, my belayer came to the anchor, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to check it out, like see what the clips are like, and then see what the top is like, because I hadn't been up to the anchor before. So then I like blink, and I'm like through the crux, which was real. The crux is hard. The crux on that pitch is probably harder than any single move onto bolt.
Okay.
Like it's a cruxy little piece of rock. And then I get through the redpoint crux, and I'm like shaking with the clips because it's kind of it's Tuolumne Meadows, you know. It's not like known for being like Spanish style bolting.
Yeah.
And then I get to that scoop, and I'm like breathing really hard, and I'm in the scoop, and I'm like, okay, like relax, you could do this. You like 2 more bullets, and you're gonna send this thing, you know.
Right.
And
so you're onsighting from here on.
Yeah, I'm on site from here on out for sure.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, I look up and I'm like, yeah, like it looks like 5'11". Like those knobs are gigantic. Like, you got this, you know, in the bag. It's like trying to like be like, yeah, but then not getting too confident. So I start climbing, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is easy. Like these moves are easy. And then I see the anchor, and I kind of like whimper. And I don't know if anyone else has had this experience. I've not talked to anyone who's done this route.
Okay.
But if you've ever been to Tuolumne or like anywhere that's been glaciated, like some of those domes have this glacial polish on them. So it's like just basically where the glacier was, right? So I get there and I'm like, wow, there used to be a glacier here. And then I'm like, that's cool. And then I think, holy crap, he put the anchor like in the glacier polish. That's a problem because if you touch any of that stuff, it's like not. There's no texture there.
It's like
there's
polished
no holds.
marble.
It's just polished marble, basically, but it's granite. And so I'm looking at this, and I'm like, how the fuck do you clip those anchors? Like, where do you stand? It's like this slab of polish. There's no feet that I could see. I didn't see any handholds. It was just like this streak of polish, and I was like, shit. And so I kind of go up and down, and like Belayer's probably like, what the hell is going on, you know? And eventually I just commit to some stupid on-the-fly sequence where I found like 2 little feet that kind of worked. And I was like, but I'm not touching that rock. Like I knew if I touched it, it would just be not a good idea. So I like leaned into the rock, no hands. I'm on these 2 crappy feet, and I start pulling up the rope, and we're talking like a lot of rope. And it's just like this. I'm so glad he was at the first anchor. If he was at the ledge, I don't even know. Like, it's just so much weight, and I just shove it into those. That's the longest second of my life. Yeah, and I'm like, you know, I just don't understand because I was at a no hands like 30 feet below this, and that would have made it possible to lower with an 80. And now I have all these lowering shenanigans, and I had that heinous anchor experience. But whatever, it's all good because I did it. But I really want to know if anyone else has had that experience. Mm-hmm. I think Ron Kalk did, because in that Masters of Stone video, he freaking grabs the anchors.
Right. So you were telling me that you tried to understand. You're like, how the hell did Ron do this, and how did anyone else do it? And he does it in Masters of Stone, but he gets to the top and he just grabs the chains.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure he actually did it in real life, and
maybe
well,
not.
I'm sure Katie Lambert did it, Lonnie Kalk did it. Like I think it's different when you show up and you have A, been up there, and B, didn't have this like experience of like, I really wasn't expecting to even get to the crux on that go. Mm-hmm. And so I was like frazzled.
Yeah.
It's probably not even that bad. I bet you someone's gonna write to you and be like, she's fucking lying to you. Like, maybe I made it all up, but in the moment it was very real, and I thought I was gonna lose. I thought I was gonna botch it. Yeah, but yeah, the reason I'm like, because you mentioned like to Bolt train me for that or something. Yeah, it's interesting because after I did it, I was like, well, that can't be 13D, because most people give it 13 delta. Mm-hmm. I had never done I hadn't even been on a 13D at that point. Okay, and I was like, well, if the Bolt is 14A. Like, this is more than one step below it. But it's impossible to do it that way. You know, now that I think about it more, you know, it's just, I went with the consensus, you know. They're different, too. They're different. Like, one is cruxy, one is not.
Yeah, it's interesting when it has harder moves, but not as sustained. It's hard to...
Yeah, and the feet are much better.
The algorithms don't always make sense.
Yeah, their feet are much better on piece.
Interesting.
Overall. Yeah.
Were there any tactics, from what I understand about that route, I haven't tried it, but I think I remember hearing Beth Rodden talk about it in one of the Dosage movies, and she was saying it was really hard to remember what knobs to grab.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
There's just knobs everywhere.
Yeah, see knobs.
Did you have any strategy for remembering and for any tick mark strategies? I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely ticked it. It was lucky because I was basically the only one.
Color-coded ticks?
No.
Little left and right symbols or anything?
So I really honed it on the crux.
Okay.
So you start off, and it starts off like 5-12, kind of sharp climbing. It's all there. I mean, it's just kind of hard. And then you get to the crux. And that's where I was like busting out the strategies, because the crux involves these like, we called them the die holds, because that's how they looked. Like, they're like dice on the wall. And I actually remember this being a problem. I would be like, I don't know which two fingers to nipple pinch this die hold, because that's how you would have to hold it, you know, with these really specific pinches. And, you know, I ticked them. I didn't have any specific strategies besides just straight up ticking it and visualizing it on my rest days. But I remember when I sent, I grabbed it with the wrong two fingers, and I was just like, go with it. But the problem was, because I was so honed in on the crux, I really it was kind of like the Bolt thing. I didn't really work on the top that much, because my first time up it, I onsighted from that rest through the 13A like redpoint crux into that scoop, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna focus on the crux.
Yeah.
And that was not the best strategy, because when I was up there, like leading it, I was like, fuck, I wish I remember what to do here. Like, I did some down climbing and some bullshit. Like, it was just a straight up, like, try really hard sort of thing. So, unfortunately, I can't really impress upon you anything besides just taking and visualizing.
Okay.
Like, the two things that we all do.
Yeah.
But, yeah, no, I didn't have color-coded chalk or anything. I felt bad because, like, after, there's a huge rain event. And all the chalk got washed out.
Oh, wow.
This guy who was there, he was like, oh, I really want to try that route.
Yeah.
And then he like showed up and everything was gone.
Oh, man.
So all my hard work didn't pay off for him.
Oh, dang. Shoot.
Yeah.
What about when you showed up? Did you have to like find all the holds and chalk everything, or was there...
Yeah.
Okay.
There wasn't anything. It's not as like... I don't recall it being like some epic to figure it out.
Okay.
I remember taking some time for sure. But like I said, really all about the crux. The top, like you have options. Yeah.
Cool.
It's just the crux.
So those are both 2018, right?
Yeah.
I want to get to something more current. Okay. So you just recently sent a route called Voodoo.
Yeah.
It's your first 514B. We're talking on the 4th of June now. This is like, what, 2 weeks ago?
Oh, the day I did it.
Yeah. May something?
Yeah, May something. Yeah, like a week or two ago. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell me about that one?
Well, it's in Washington.
Where should we start? It's in Washington at a crag called Equinox.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that crag does have a bit of a sensitive access sort of situation, so we probably can't spray too much about it.
Well, you can technically go there. It's on DNR land. It's just
a really long approach at this point.
Yeah, it's a long approach at this point, and I mean, I have all the information. If anyone wants to go there, they can tell me. I mean, Access Fund, the Washington Collaborators Coalition does too. There's basically one road you can take now, but the gate's locked, and it's 6 miles one way.
Okay.
With a bike or my foot.
Gotcha.
Yeah. There used to be this like access to Boy Scout land. You used to be able to just drive up that road. But yeah, unfortunately, that's not.
So it was exciting for me to hear that you were working on that because that was actually my first like sport climbing crag.
Cool,
That's like where I cut my teeth.
Oh, really?
For sure. Yeah, I was living
awesome.
in Bellingham at the time, and I'd been mostly bouldering for the 5 years that I'd been a climber at that point, and I started climbing there. And Black Magic, which is the 13A, was my first 13A.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah.
a proper first 13A, dude.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. It was the one that was there, It was like, that's cool.
That is kind of the one that's there, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
I guess there's multiple, but that was the one that like really caught my eye at first.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember even then like looking up above and being like, whoa, maybe someday.
Yeah. Yeah. So I should give a big asterisk here. So when Jonathan Segrist did that route in 2011, he started. So Black Magic has 2 starts. Right. So Black Magic is a 13A at Equinox, and Equinox is kind of this cave feature, right? It's not like as steep as a real cave, but it kind of is kind of like a cave. And Black Magic starts at the very bottom of that cave. It does kind of a burly boulder problem. And then
like V6 or something.
Yeah, like V5 or V6. It kind of depends on.
Yeah.
It's kind of height dependent. It's kind of weird, and it's kind of often wet. So it kind of depends on where you fit in there. Some people call it really hard. Others don't seem to think it's that bad. I think it's pretty burly. And then you get to this like jug. This jug happens to be like face level with this boulder that you could just jump off of and grab that jug. So you could skip the bottom boulder, jump off this other boulder. And then if you do that, start is 12D. Right? So when Jonathan did it, he did it from the ground. Maybe Jeremy Zacharias did it from the ground. I did not. I did the jump start to do Voodoo.
Okay.
I think Reed Johnson did the jump start, and I think Ben Harrington also did. Like, I think everyone else who's ever done it has done the jump start.
Okay.
For various reasons that if you want to, I can go into it. I've done the 13A.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did the 13A. And originally I was like, I'm going to do it from the ground.
Right.
But I didn't end up doing it that way.
Okay.
If you want, I can explain why. But it's still really hard.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like seeping's probably a big factor.
So it gets wet a lot. It's also kind of a pain because there's like this giant boulder, the one you jump off of.
Right, that you might swing into.
That you swing into every time.
Right.
And especially
I remember like starting Z-clipped and like doing some
you
shenanigans.
have to start back clipped and then you have to like undo it. It's this whole process just to do the bottom boulder. And the other thing was, for me, that bottom boulder, and I just didn't love it. It's this like thrutchy, shouldery thing, especially with my height. Like, it felt like World Cup style, like kind of boulder. And basically, I was less psyched on the route with that boulder added. And so, and the jump is like awesome. Like, if you're, I started to kind of hate it after a while, like, for sure. Because it's like, oh God, I have to jump off this rock again. If you're tall, you can just lean over and grab the jug. Like, you straight up. If you're short, you gotta like fly through the air. And
you didn't just clip over and like take on the rope for a second?
No. You jump.
Nice.
You jump.
That's awesome.
You definitely jump. There's no taking and no. I did for work it sometimes. I'm like, okay, I don't feel like doing this. But like for Sengos, yeah, you jump.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know why Reed and Ben they didn't do it that way, but it's just not that creative a boulder. It's annoying to work. Like, you're gonna smash into the wall, and the top climbing is so much harder than anything on that bottom that I can't imagine it would change the grade at all. But maybe it does. But yeah, I want to be really clear there because people would ask me like, "Are you gonna do it from the ground?" Yeah. And originally I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it from the ground. But basically it became this point of like, I don't like it as much from the ground. So why would I? That's why I did it. So cool. Yeah. And then you climb
Still badass.
Yeah, I think is it? I don't know. But it's a great route. Like, and I think it's a better route if you do it that way.
Cool.
Yeah. The thought of doing that boulder like 50 times, it's just such an annoying little boulder. And it's like constantly wet. But yeah, so
when we were first texting about doing this interview, you sent me something really funny. I think one of the things I said that I was interested in asking you about was Voodoo. Yeah. And you're like, well, here's my story. And you sent me like a 2-sentence thing that was like, started eating cheese, stopped training, only climbed outside, and now I'm way closer, not injured, but still haven't sent. And that was your podcast interview. That was your
good.
That was your story at the time. And then you went on to send. You were of course talking about Voodoo, and you went on to send like a week later. But then we followed up and talked more about it, and it sounds like it was quite a journey on that one. You had multiple seasons, and it sounds like you had a pretty serious injury or kind of like a scare on a Sengo last year. Is that right?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
See, I started trying the route last summer, got really into it, etc. And then towards the end of the summer, it finally started to get like kind of reasonable conditions because it was just way too hot. And I got really confident at one point because I finally just one-hung the thing basically. And at one point I was getting really confident and I felt this like twinge in my finger, my right ring finger, and I totally ignored it. Like I did the thing you're not supposed to do. Like I like kind of stopped. Like at that point I was training. I was actually training for the first time in my like climbing career. I like got a coach and I trained.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because I was working a lot. I was TAing.
Where were you training at?
So I did one of Chris Hampton's things.
Okay.
Like he was like my dude. Like we would like do the app thing. So I was like, well, I have to work a lot. Like I can only get out once a week or whatever. Like I should finally start training. And it was working. Like I was getting stronger for sure. Like it was working in that regard. But yeah, my fingers started hurting probably because I was just overdoing it. And I like stopped hangboarding and that's all I did to like address that problem. And then I got really close one day and I remember telling my belayer, I was like, damn, I'm really close, but my finger really hurts, you know? But I was walking that razor thin line, you know, between injury and like peaking. And me being me, I just went out. And the next time I went out, the very first crux is like these micro crimps. Grab the micro crimp and I felt something really wrong. And I just let go, right? So that was my last day on the route in 2018. And I knew something was wrong for sure. I didn't hear a pop or anything like that. I just felt this sudden twinge. But like I said, it had been hurting for like weeks at that point. And I went to see a doctor about it. So Dr. Winston Warm, who people might know around here, he's kind of like the climbing doctor. Okay. So he's really good. He does shoulders and knees and also fingers. And he has that ability to ultrasound the finger to actually see if the pulley is torn. Yeah. And the way that they do that is they ultrasound your finger and they measure the distance from the base of your bone to the tendon, right? Because what a pulley does is it holds a tendon to the bone. So if that distance is too high, they know that something's been compromised, right? So I go in there and I'm like, cool, I got this access to this super cool doctor because he's in my network through University of Washington. And he's a great guy in that he got me in there fast, you know? He was like, yeah, like this week, let's do it. And show up and the guy does a scan and he just straight up looks at me. He's like, you fully tore your pulley. Ooh. Like fully tore it. I was thinking like a sprain or something, you know, because I didn't hear anything. There was not really much swelling. The things I'd heard that should happen didn't happen. And so when he said that, I felt really blindsided because when I'd heard of full tears, I've only heard pretty horrible recovery times and potential surgery. So I was really scared. And then he told me, okay, like, don't worry, like, it's gonna heal, and it's gonna heal really well because I have these orthotic braces that you wear. And what the brace does, like, it's kind of like tape. It's a thermoplast. So you like mold some plastic to your finger and you wear it nonstop for 6 weeks. Whoa. And it's like, so the idea is it's supposed to help the pulley heal close to the bone. Okay. Because when it heals... It holds your tendon up against your bone, maybe? So yeah, like it acts like a fake pulley. And so it's like training the tissue or the ligament, I don't know what the correct word is really, to heal as it should. Okay. Because he says, he told me was that when they tear, they often heal really stretched out. You know? And that just, it's nothing really bad, but it could promote like tendonitis later, apparently. So yeah, it takes 6 weeks off. He's like, you don't do anything, you know, nothing for 6 weeks. And I had just felt the strongest I ever felt, which happens to it happens to a lot of people. The juxtaposition between like being in your prime and then being really injured seems to be one that other people have experienced. Sure. You know? Yes, it's quite common. And so I take 6 weeks off and I was, you know, I'm pretty pessimistic sometimes, some people would say. And I was like, and I'm also really into data. Like I read every paper possible about fingers, you know what I mean? I'm sure we all would have, but I had access to like the university library. I looked up everything. I knew all the numbers, you know, I knew what my chances were. And the chances seemed actually pretty okay that if I wore this thing, it would heal pretty normally and it would be a long road to recovery, but in 4 to 5 months, that would be okay.
Mm-hmm.
So 6 weeks later, the idea is to take a scan, and that now my pulley should be closer to the bone, right? To see how it's healing.
Yeah.
So I show up, and I was like trying to prepare myself for the idea that it might not be, right? Like I was like, maybe it's not going to be, and they're going to tell me to have surgery, because that's another option is to have surgery. Show up, they do the scan, and I had read enough papers and seen enough images and looked at my own image that they gave me of the pulley, like the ultrasound.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that nothing had changed. Like when he put the goo on my hand, he put the ultrasound probe on my finger, and I saw the image, and the air in the room just got really thick. You know, like the tension was just like, and it wasn't the doctor, Dr. Worm, who was actually doing it. It was like his technician, this guy Eric, and he was a really nice guy, and he's the one who did the first one, and you know, I don't even know if he told me anything or if I just like left. Like it was just really obvious that nothing had changed.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like sitting in the freaking waiting room, just like devastated, devastated. Like, okay, I'm never climbing again, or I need to have surgery, and they're gonna like tear my finger apart. I'm never gonna be the same. Especially someone like me, I really like small holds. You know, I'm not like I don't. Yeah, so it was really hard to wait that long, try to believe in the process, something you can't see or feel, and then just like be told that nothing, your body didn't heal, your body didn't do its job. You know. And then I get this text message. I'm sitting in the waiting room. I'm definitely crying, okay? I'm sitting in the waiting room by myself, like, just, it's like pouring rain outside. It's just this gloomy-ass day, you know? And I get this text, and it's, like, from Dr. Worm. He's like, hey, can I call you? And I'm like, yeah, call me, dude. Tell me I need surgery.
Yeah.
He calls me, and he was, like, eating a bag of chips or something the whole time, I swear. Because I heard this, like, rustling, and, like, he was eating something. He's like, so I saw your images. And this is why he's so good, is like not only is he good at like the doctoring side of things, but he is fast at responding. He knew I was sitting there freaking out, you know. He's like, so I saw your images that were just taken like 5 minutes ago, and I don't think you actually tore your pulley, is what he told me. And I was like, como? Like what?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so I'm just like, what do you mean? Like, and then as he starts explaining it to me, I start to realize what actually happened.
Okay.
Based on my methodical research that I've done. So, like he said when I first heard it, if you don't wear that brace, it heals very far from the bone. Okay. So, if I had torn it, really torn it, it should look different 6 weeks later. Even if it's not healing perfectly. If I had a traumatic event, I'm a healthy person, it should be a little different. No change indicates no trauma, right? And so what he thinks happened, and what I think happened too, because why not, is that I must have torn this a long time ago. Like, a long time ago, I tore my pulley. I didn't notice because I was, like, doing the climbing, like, once a week or something, where I wasn't, you know, I wasn't super gung-ho about it right away. Something happened, I tore my pulley. I never really noticed, and it healed stretched out. And so, because they had no baseline image of my ring finger pre me showing up. You know, if they had taken this image like a year ago, it probably would have looked the same, but I had no symptoms. My pulley was just really stretched out. I had a new normal. And so I basically had apparently a bad case of some sort of flare up with tendonitis because it was stretched out. And that's what caused the pain. And so here I am thinking I'm done, you know, and he's like, you can go climbing like today if you want. You can do whatever you want. You're fine.
Wow.
And I was like, what? And so I went to the gym, I took that damn thing off, and I knew he was right, like, I didn't fully tear it, because, you know, I did, like, a V7 or a V8 or something, you know, like, you're not supposed to even be able to, like, hold, like, like, glass of water at that point. With, you know what I mean? Like,
it felt fine? It
felt totally fine.
Wow.
Yeah. It felt totally fine.
Amazing. Well, did they look at your other ring finger?
Yeah, so I had other images, and those looked like perfect. Like those. So if I ever hurt this other ring finger, I have a baseline image for that ring finger. But yeah, I had never gone in before to get these images done.
Fascinating.
Yeah, so if anyone, like, and I'm not trying to, like, Dr. Worm did what he needed to do, because he probably thought of that. Maybe he had that.
There's a chance that this was.
Yeah, but if I had even risked trying to climb on it too soon, then you're talking about pulling other pulleys, and then you're talking about total surgery for sure. So I had to do the conservative route, but it was definitely a mind warp for sure to be like that low, and then like 5 minutes later, you know, on his sonship break, he told me that, like, you know, I was good to go. And I really was. I mean, it felt a little weird for sure, but it wasn't a full tear. I don't even think it was a partial tear. So that was kind of weird. So yeah, that happened on Voodoo.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. And then I went right back on Voodoo, by the way. 6 weeks off. And I was like, and it was like October. It was really wet. I was like, I'm going to go try Voodoo.
Yeah.
And I tried it for a couple days.
How'd it go?
It actually went decent. Like I did all the moves. I actually got to a decent high point, but the weather just turned. Yeah. I was like, peace. Next year.
So you've had an incredible year. You've been traveling. You've done like 514s in the last year, including that one.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you credit, well, I mean, the eating cheese thing is just funny, but then stopped training is something that you threw in there. Do you feel like you've gotten stronger or better just through rock climbing, or do you think now you're like capitalizing on the training that you did do? How are you thinking about that?
I definitely the former.
Interesting.
Like, yeah. Because I didn't do that much training. Like, I feel like to capitalize on the training, it would have to be, like, a year of just, like... But I'm not a physio. I don't really know how it works.
How long did you do it?
Chris's program was 12 weeks long.
Okay.
And I had, like... Don't get me wrong. I definitely would, like... When I lived in Seattle, I was going to the gym a lot. And I was training for all intents and purposes. But I didn't have, like, a plan. Like, I didn't have, like, a coach telling me what to do. I would just kind of, like, moonboard.
Okay.
And then like do max hang. So you know, I did have it's not like I never set foot in a gym. And
yeah.
Like I definitely would.
And you were even fingerboarding.
Yeah. I would definitely very often go to the gym. And so I guess probably longer if you add that in there. But yeah, so I left. So I stopped going to the gym at all August 2018 because that's when I hurt. Sorry, 2019 because that's when I hurt my finger. And then I took 6 weeks off, and I did a bunch of like working out, like deadlifts and stuff during that time because I couldn't do anything else. I actually couldn't really even deadlift, but like I guess I could have that whole time. But anyways,
probably shouldn't try it. If you're listening and you have a finger injury, do not try to deadlift.
I mean, it was good that to that time off for sure. It was just a different mindset. But I had to go to Seattle. No, then I went to Yosemite. Right, I went to Yosemite, and then I had to go to Seattle for like a week, and I climbed in the gym at that point. And then I didn't climb in the gym at all. I just went to St. George, lived there for the whole winter. And then I was going to climb in the gym. Like the plan was to go. I thought I needed it. I was like, I'm going to go train in the gym for Voodoo. There's no way I'm going to be able to do the moves on Voodoo unless I get some gym time. That was like how I thought. Yeah. But then the coronavirus happened. And so there's no gyms.
Right.
So I kind of set up a little ring thing and a hangboard, but I really didn't do it. I did 4 workouts. And I show up on Voodoo, and I was way stronger than I was the year before. So I just think that the VRG was actually kind of a good trainer for that route.
That makes a lot of sense.
Because it's kind of the same angle, kind of, and the holds are small, and that, it's hard climbing.
Yeah, and you spent most of the winter there, yeah?
Yeah, most of the winter there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's... I'm not saying training is bad. I'm sure I could benefit from it. But I was I'm kind of less motivated to do it now. You know what I'm saying? Because I did a lot of my hardest routes without any gym time at all. Yeah. I'm not saying it's bad. I should probably do more of it. Right. But I was pretty I'm still kind of digesting it in a way. Yeah.
I'll be curious to keep talking to you as you move forward and see what...
I'm sure I could use some training, especially in my big muscle groups and stuff. But I think there's a point in every climber's career where they get to the point where they kind of maxed out what they can learn and how strong they can get on the rock by itself. And here's the other thing is I didn't just climb nilly-dilly. I had a project I was always trying hard. And I think that's the difference. If I had just gone out and kind of done
la-di-da
or if I had gone out and not been focused on hard routes, I think the outcome would have been different. But I was focused on hard routes.
That's interesting, though, because I feel like not everyone thrives off of that sort of approach, Like I've seen a lot of climbers get too bogged down in heavy projecting, and they don't ever do enough. They don't ever build enough of a pyramid of experience to get really
Project
good at
Atrophy
climbing.
style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you feel like you've gotten stronger through doing that?
Well, I feel like the reason that I got stronger without training was because I was constantly trying hard routes, but I did vary the routes up.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I did get in quite the cycle at the VRG, but the projects I had at the VRG were bookends, and in the middle was a period of like fast ticks.
Okay.
You know, so I think I was able to kind of ward off the project atrophy.
Yeah.
But still be trying at my limit enough to apparently get stronger.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely was like 100%. Like the first day on Voodoo, it was like, I used to think that route was my absolute limit. And now I'm like, that's not even close. You know what I mean?
That's so
yeah,
cool.
It was cool.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, it was a cool feeling.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. You talk about how you love micro crimps, and you know we talked about to bolt and then piece, and now Voodoo, Voodoo is steeper, but it's still not that steep.
Yeah. And Voodoo is steeper. The crux.
Yeah.
It's not crimping. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The crux is this very unique boulder problem. That's like underclings and really bad Gastons and slopers.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was cool.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And I guess I bring that up because I don't want to paint the picture of you being a one-dimensional climber, because you're not at all. Like you've also done like really hard routes at the Hurricane, and like couldn't really be more different from.
Yeah. So that's another thing.
Yeah.
Anti-style. I think that helps too.
Yeah. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely am better. I don't actually really like to bolt and piece pure vert. I haven't done a pure vert route since piece, I don't think. Like a really hard one. Like the VRG, everyone thinks it's vert, but it's actually not. I mean, like all the hard climbing is at the bottom, and the bottom is like 15 degrees overhung or something. I think when you start doing really hard vert routes, it just gets really heinous for other reasons, just really bad holds and really bad feet. I
can't even think of what the step up from to bolt.
Oh, I mean, there's those routes in Europe, like that one wall, the 9A that Babsy did.
Jesus.
There's that Andra one, the 15C slab thing. Yeah, that's my next project. Mike Doyle, are you listening? Because you got to show up.
The one in Asafale, the 15.
Yeah.
Disbelief.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I gotta have Mike Doyle for that one. Telling me how to do it.
The angelic glow.
Yeah. But I climbed at the Hurricane a little bit. I didn't climb like that hard. I mean, come on, at the Hurricane. Yeah.
13D.
Yeah. I did that one route that everyone does. Everyone loves that route. Killer Bees. Yeah. And I remember talking to Charlie Egan about it, your friend, because I was like, I didn't use a single knee bar, Charlie. It's only 13D if you don't use it. I'm just kidding. But the thing was, I remember thinking, like, I think like a lot of my beliefs got totally thrown out the door for this whole season, because I remember being like, this is too steep, like for Voodoo or whatever. Like I can't.
Like not relevant?
Yeah, like not relevant. Because when I was supposed to go train at the gym, that was my plan before Voodoo, coronavirus happened, so I didn't. But me and my partner went to this really remote cave, in Nevada. And I remember being like, man, this is not going to help me because it's too steep. The holds are too good and it's just too steep. And I actually really think that it did help me. Because it's like, I'm naturally, like my natural skill is that to bolt kind of style, okay? So that's there. I have that base. Like that's the kind of stuff that I can just sort of always have in theory. The steep stuff is hard for me, like powerful movement, quick movement. Like, it's not just about like being brilliant. It's about like being able to access power quickly, right? Like I don't know if that's the correct wording of it, but that's what steep climbing has taught me how to do. And on Voodoo, the crux is not my style at all. It's extremely powerful, and you have to be both simultaneously like in control, but also quick with your movements. And I think that the steep climbing season I had taught me how to be powerful. And so when I combine, like, okay, I'm decent at crimping, I'm decent at vertical climbing, with that, it just added up to a really nice training mix that I didn't intend.
It added up to crushing Voodoo.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't know if I crushed Voodoo. I definitely like beat it into submission. But for sure, yeah, like it worked out. And I think that climbing your anti-style is super important. And now I do anyways. Yeah. Because, I mean, it's really fun. I like that kind of stuff.
Okay, cool.
I do like that kind of, I would love to do harder routes.
Yeah.
Like on roofs and things like that. It's just fun.
Yeah.
Like, vertical climbing is just not that much fun, really.
Right.
I mean, it is, but
not
it isn't.
type 1 anyway.
It's not type 1. Like,
most of the time.
Like, I'm never going to go and repeat to bowl. I'm not going to be like, cool, let's do that again. But, like, maybe I'll repeat Killer Bees. Like, or some of these other routes. Like, right before Voodoo, in this cave that we went to, I did what is definitely a 14A for me on that style.
This is in Nevada?
This is in Nevada. Yeah, it's like this remote cave, kind of like a quote-unquote secret, whatever.
Okay.
But it was just a good place to go during the coronavirus because there was nobody there. But this route was steep. It wasn't like horror cave. It wasn't a roof, but it was steeper than Voodoo for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And there were so many little tricky knee bars in there and like big burly moves, and the crux was like quite hard. It was like 100% a 14A for me. And I did it right before coming to Voodoo. You know, and so that was a big confidence booster too, because I was like, sick. I did a 14A on my anti-style.
Sick, yeah.
Like, yeah.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I think that probably was a really good way to train, but like I didn't know it. Because I was stressed about it. I was like, oh man, I'm going to show up and get my ass handed to me. Like, you know, I remember my partner, he was like, okay, you just got to like be ready for like, you know, the first week you got to tune in. Yeah. Don't take it seriously. And then my first day I like crushed it. I was like, hell yeah.
Nice.
And then I went on to not crush it for several weeks, but whatever. It all worked out.
Yeah, split tips and rain.
Tips and rain, and just also like expectations and things. And access got all crazy, you know. So, but yeah, it's such a good route, and I hope that they figure out how to make it a more accessible cliff. Me too. I hope I can help in that way. Yeah, it's such a good cliff.
It is.
Yeah, it's so great.
I also want to ask you about Papa Legba.
Reed will be psyched that you're talking about it. Yeah, so...
You told me the funniest story. So you got your scuba cert?
Yeah, I got my scuba cert yesterday. I'm all good.
We're
Go to my Jamaica trip tomorrow. No. Yeah, so Papa Legba is a new route that Reed Johnson bolted up there last year. And so you do the start of Voodoo. I think he also did this from the jump start. I don't think this is from the ground.
Okay.
In fact, I'm pretty certain of it. You do the 12D, do the first crux of Voodoo, the kind of crimpy crux, and then you get this quote-unquote rest. It's like such bullshit as a rest. It's like this spear that you can only fit one hand in at the time. It's basically like a way to like mentally rest, but not to actually rest. And instead of going left into the prominent crux of Voodoo, which guards the chains, you go right. And unfortunately, to get right, you have to like climb through basically like mud. Like Equinox is in Washington. It's often wet, you know, but
this is like a permanent slime trail.
This is like a permanent, like, yeah, it's like a permanent, it's this ledge, just like, I'm sure it's alive. It's like alive. It's not like just water on rock. There's something living in there, like, you know, that I would disturb every time. And the thing that's really kind of serendipitous about it is that like the holds are really good. So you can climb through it. If they were bad, it would just be impossible.
There's no avoiding the wet.
There's not really. I mean, so we put tinfoil on some of the holds, you know. But for me, so my partner was working it too, and he's like 6'2" or something. He was able to kind of like reach the holds and just sort of like move his feet on the very few holds that were wet. That were dry. He would definitely get wet and stuff, but not nearly as much. Me, either because I don't know how to rock climb, or let's just say it's because I'm short, whichever one. I would like get the holds, and there was like the holds that he used and the feet that he used, and if it were dry, it'd be like 5'10" or whatever. I mean, it's easy. It's like the holds are big. Yeah. But to move between one hold to the other, I had to lock off. I couldn't just reach it, you know. So I would lock off. And then I would just drag my body. Because when you're locking off, you're not trying to go away from the wall. You know, you're trying to go into the wall. So I just drag my body, like, through the slime. And then, like, I would just have it all over my sports bra, my tights, and just, like, yeah, it was. And then I would get to the breast and, like, hurriedly try to brush the stuff off my foot. And I did get better at it, like, as time went on.
Shoe drying beta?
Yeah, just, like, avoiding like basically I was like, okay, you don't really need to lock off like that hard. Like these holds are big, and half of that about all that route was like figuring out that sequence. But then it's like a really like it's a good route. And, like go read for bolting it. And
sweet.
It's like a cool boulder after that, and it's like
on dry rock.
Yeah, on dry rock.
On the right side of the slime.
Yeah. So it's actually on the left side technically. Okay. So it kind of goes straight, then right, then left. Okay. But it's cool, and like if you want to do the start of Voodoo, but you're turned off by the crux, and you like scuba diving, it's a good route. But yeah, I managed to do that yesterday. Awesome. Literally.
Yeah. Amazing.
I
just saw that today. I was like, hell yeah, she did it.
The slime route.
It's a good route.
Like people should go and do it. Like it's a good. It needs more sets because I didn't know I was. Like it was hard for me to grade it because I had the bottom so damn wired.
Oh, okay.
From Voodoo,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
14A maybe.
Yeah. So Reed gave it 14A, and then Tom did it, and Tom's really good at climbing, and he didn't like send it immediately, so it was obviously hard. And the way that I did the top, yeah, I mean, it's harder than a 13Ds there. Let's put it that way, but it's not as hard as Voodoo.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Grades.
Grades.
Yeah.
I would love to ask you about the foot story. So it's really interesting to hear about this experience you had with your finger, and I think every climber can relate to that.
Yeah.
This injury, though, was really fascinating to hear about when we talked on the phone. And it sounds horrible. It's something I can't really relate to. So, yeah, I was fascinated by that. So I'd love to hear what happened in 2013 with your foot.
Yeah, so this has actually happened right before I was going to go to Spain.
Okay.
Yeah,
for
so
your travel abroad?
For my study abroad. Yeah, so I was like, this is 2013, July.
Okay.
I'm 21. I'm like healthy and happy and whatever, like I'm perfectly fine.
Off to meet all the cute Spanish boys.
Oh, yeah, you really like this theme. Yeah, off to meet Pablo.
I'm trying to force
and Javier. Yeah,
Antonio.
I mean, come on. Yeah, there was a little bit. I mean, come on. I was single and going to Spain. Like, let's be realistic, for sure. But anyways, I was just excited. I was just like, you could probably tell I'm kind of loquacious and I talk a lot. I'm social and whatever. So I was.
That's why you're here. Yeah.
Good. I'm glad that my climbing is impressive enough. What did you say it was? I was too interesting.
Right, when we were talking, you're like, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. I don't think I'm interesting. And I'm like, I literally don't think we're going to get to half of this stuff.
I'm going to put that
You're
in my
actually
resume.
too interesting.
Yeah, that's going to be my new business
and
card.
And that's the problem here, is that you're too interesting.
Just like that guy. Who's that? What's that beer ad?
The most interesting man in the world. Dos Equis.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm looking for a job, so. Anyways, so yeah, 2013. I guess I'm just saying that I'm explaining that I was like very looking forward to my Spain trip, and it's July, and I used to be a really big runner, like an avid runner. I still run, like every rest day. Generally, I run, but I'm talking like running, like 50 miles a week.
Yeah, 60 miles a week.
Big runner. And
I was reading on your blog, you used to run, or maybe still run, when you're stressed, right? Like,
that's for sure. That's huge for me.
Yeah.
I 100% need it. Yeah. Most of my hardest routes I had ran the day before. Like,
okay.
Yeah, running is just integral for my mental happiness. I don't think my calves are unfortunately gigantic, so I would. If you don't need to do it as a rock climber, like, don't. But it's actually one I visualize the most too. But that's a side note. Running was great, and a year before that, I was like really into running, and I hurt my knee. It wasn't like a tear or anything. It was just this kind of like runner's knee thing. So that's the only thing I had going on at that time. I was still trying to figure out what that was, and I had actually resigned myself at that point to I was like, okay, I can't run anymore because this knee thing is just not getting better. And so I was like, well, I got this Spain trip to look forward to. And because I wasn't running so much, I started climbing more, right? But one day, I wake up and my feet felt weird. Like, that's the only thing I can really say is I woke up one day and my feet felt weird.
Wow.
They just felt bizarre. Like, it started off as, so it started with my right. And it was just this, like, increased perception of the bottom of my foot is how it started.
Interesting.
Just I kind of like noticed the bottom of my feet. And then the span of like 8 hours, I went from that to like devastatingly painful. Like, I can't stand up for 30 seconds without just like needing to sit down. So it was kind of sudden and swift. And I mean, it started in my right foot, and then I don't know, a few days later it went to my left. And so here I am, like, just accepted this knee injury thing, really psyched to go to Spain, and then that happened. I mentioned the knee story because I was like, okay, I understand injuries. Like, I'm going to rest and I'll be fine. But I was a little confused because I hadn't been running. So I was like, where is this coming from? But I was trying to be positive. Anyways, long story short, I didn't do anything. I sat on my ass for like a month. And that's pretty hard for me, for everyone. But it's really difficult. I would go swimming. I like taught myself how to actually swim.
Did you go to the doctor right away?
So yeah, I did. So first I was like, I'm going to rest. And I went and saw podiatrists, feet doctor. And every single one of them, like the first month, it was all podiatrists. And they were like, you got plantar fasciitis. I don't know if you know what that is, but It's like the bottoms of your feet. It's a common running injury where the bottoms of your feet, like the fascia that connects the heel to the arch or something, just gets inflamed and it hurts on the bottom of your feet. And I was like, yeah, it doesn't really seem like I have plantar fasciitis because the symptoms of plantar fasciitis don't match up with my symptoms. Like there's very specific plantar fasciitis symptoms, like you push on the heel and it hurts. That wasn't the thing with me. It hurts more when you wake up. For me, it hurted more the longer I stood on my feet. Basically, like, it didn't make sense. But I showed up. I'm healthy. I'm a former runner. I'm 21. Plantar fasciitis. Here's some orthotics. And I was just like, I knew it was wrong. But what am I going to do? Like, that's what they told me, you know? Nothing changed. Absolutely nothing changed. Like, total rest didn't do anything. And so I postponed my Spain trip. I take the quarter off from school and I, like, live with my parents. And my life becomes figuring out what's wrong with me, you know?
Yeah.
And so it goes from podiatrist to every flavor of doctor you ever could imagine. Because so burning sensations, like maybe it's a nerve thing, some doctors thought. So I saw like a ton of neurologists. I saw rheumatologists. One of them took me off gluten, you know, like I was eating all kinds of different stuff. I was on WebMD or whatever forum, like, 10 hours of the day. Nothing did anything for like 3 or 4 months.
Oh my
And I'm talking about like debilitating to the point, like, you can't like wash the dishes, you can't take your dog for a walk around the block. Like I cut off contact from all my friends. Like it was just dark. And I began to think like, is this my life now? Like, and I also saw a bunch of like Eastern medicine, like so much acupuncture, like massage. I saw this healer that my dad somehow found like through word of mouth or something. And that was when I really kind of like, I don't not believe in, I'm sure there's some people who have like a perceptive sense of the human body and how to heal it and things. But this guy, I walk into his office and like I lay down and he hovers his hands above me for like 4 minutes. And then he's like, okay, you're good. You're good to go.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, what? Like, really? And he's like, yeah, like just walk around some grass with your shoes off and then tomorrow you can go for a run. And so I'm like, like, part of me is like, well, this is obviously not true. Another part of me, because I was like so devastated, was like, hell yeah, like it's finally over, you know?
Yeah.
Needless to say, it did nothing. And then I called him the next day because he told me to call him. And he was like, oh, I didn't even talk to him. I talked to his receptionist. And the receptionist was like, okay, let me talk to him. Some nice music. And then she comes back and she's like, okay, he's going to do some remote healing on you now. So, like, you're not going to feel it. He's just going to do it. Just relax. And I just hung up. Like, and at that point, I remember being really upset because he seemed like he was making light of, like, what was going on. You know what I mean? Like, I was, like, super depressed. And, I mean, I couldn't live life in any kind of normal way. And it wasn't so much, like, the pain. The pain was there. It was not knowing what caused the pain. Like when I hurt my finger or I hurt my knee or I've broken my wrist before, it's like, okay, incident, something happened, or you obviously overtrained or whatever. And then because you know the origin, you can see a light. When you don't know what's happening, and if anything you were resting more at that period of your life, it's really hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel, especially when you're like in your 500th doctor appointment. And I'm not even exaggerating. I mean, there's a lot of doctor's appointments. So yeah, that went on for like 4 or 5 months of that. And I was like very depressed. Never been so depressed in my life because I thought everything was just. I was like, there's one point I thought I was losing running and climbing and all that stuff. And then I was like, well, I'm losing everything, like my entire lifestyle. Like I can't even like go dancing, or like do anything normal at all. Go for a walk, whatever. Yeah. And then I saw a doctor who fixed it.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, out of nowhere.
I can't imagine what that must have felt like.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I don't know how deep you want me to go here because it's a long story. But I saw a podiatrist. Basically, I like word of mouth found another podiatrist who was actually like the USA Track and Field podiatrist. I later found out that he's just like the guy to see, and he happened to be my parents' because I stole my parents' insurance. And by the way, side note, like I never want to not have health insurance again. It's really important. I couldn't have done any of this. Like my story would be a lot different if I couldn't have seen doctors for like if I had to pay for all those visits. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, I saw this guy, and I mean, he was like the best podiatrist ever, apparently, in the country. And he's like, okay, we're going to test you for plantar fasciitis because there's a test. And every other podiatrist told me, like, there's no test. I was like, okay. And test came out negative. And,
Wow.
you know, which is like, cool. I kind of knew that already. Like,
Yeah.
obviously. And at that point, I had gone to so many tests that I was like, just praying for an abnormal result. I was like, yeah, let's find something wrong with me. And it was all just like normal, healthy. And basically, there was one day he's like, okay, I'm going to give you an MRI. And I was like, yeah, finally. Because I'd always wanted an MRI, but no one wanted to give it to me. They were like, it doesn't make sense. Like, I'm not a doctor, so... But apparently, like, my symptoms were not, like, something that you would see on MRI. But this guy was like, I'm going to give you an MRI. And this was, like, my hope. I was like, oh, finally. Like, I'm getting an MRI. He's going to find something. We're going to, like... And also, in my head, was, like, the way out. I was like... Or, sorry, the last test. I was like, if this is normal, I don't know. There's nothing else, you know? And I remember driving to the doctors, and driving really hurt, like pushing on the gas pedal and brake and everything just was no good. But I remember my parents wanted to drive me, and I was like, no, I gotta be alone. You know, when I hear this normal test result. So I drove there, and I walk in there, and it was the evening time, I remember, because I like waited the whole day. And he just looks at me, he's like, yeah, your MRI is totally normal. And so then my heart just like broke, you know, and I'm just like... And this guy's a really good doctor, but his bedside manner was like absolutely atrocious. Kind of like Dr. House. Have you ever seen that show? Or anyone else? So he's like the Dr. House of the foot world. And I was just like about to just like fall like on my knees. Like I just felt like he like, you know, shot me in the chest or something.
Oh my gosh.
And he was like, there is one more test. I mean, this is exactly how it played out. This is like a movie. And he's like, it's a little invasive though. I don't know if you really want to deal with it right now. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, let's do it. Like, because that was a thing. It was like test 2 weeks, result new doctor, test 2 weeks, result new doctor. It was just this like horrible cycle.
Normal.
Yeah, and it was just like too long. They would never do simultaneous tests because it's like money, you know, it's all money. And this test, it was very invasive. It was this giant needle that he shoved into my foot, and it had a pressure gauge on it.
Whoa. And
so the idea is that each of your muscles is surrounded by fascia, right? So each of them is in their own little compartment. And he was measuring the compartment in my foot. The pressure in my compartment in my foot. And so he shoves this thing in there, and I'm like, oh, that was painful. And apparently, just like the pressure was way too high.
Wow.
Like he was like, okay, this is a good, bad sign, whichever way you want to look at it.
We've got something
You've
here.
got something abnormal. And so he's like, okay, I want you to walk around and like, get the, instigate the pain. And then we're going to take the test again. So I like ran around. I was like sprinting down the hole. I wanted it to be done, you know? And then, you know, he lays me down. I does the same thing. And the pressure is apparently like way too high. Like, I think he said quadruple what it should be.
Oh my gosh.
And so he figured it out. And he's like, okay, I figured it out. You have compartment syndrome. And I was like, I had no idea what that meant. Like, does that mean I'm screwed for the rest of my life? You know, I'm like, you know, I'm going to have to get my feet amputated or something. Does that mean the easy resolution? I had no idea what that was. Many hours of research, I had never come up with that. No other doctor even mentioned it. But I was so happy for like a minute because I was like, a name, a word, a label. We know what's wrong with me. What I mean?
Yeah, totally.
And it turned out that it was actually it's a really rare condition. Like, apparently it happens a lot if you get in a car accident. And, like, say you get or any traumatic event, your muscles start swelling up really, really fast. Too fast for your fascia to also expand with them. Because when you work out and stuff, your muscles also swell up, but the fascia expands at the same time. If you get in a car accident, it's just too fast, and the fascia can't do it. And they swell up too much, and then blood can't enter because the pressure in the compartment is too high. It can't get in to feed the muscles, and the muscles die. So that happened to me, but there was no event. It just happened. And it happens, apparently, he told me, you know, remember him saying he sees like 1,200 people a year, and it happens like once every 5 years he'll see somebody. So that rate is super low, and they don't really know why it happens. It happens to soccer players in their shins. It's just really rare in the feet. So, yeah, that was crazy.
You had to have surgery?
So, yeah, then I was like, okay, what does this mean? He's like, it's actually a really easy fix. I just do the same cut I do in every single one of my more complex foot surgeries, but instead of doing anything, I just remove the dead muscle, and I relieve the pressure, and I sew you back up, and you're good to go, and it shouldn't come back. Yeah.
How much muscle was removed? Or
apparently a lot.
Wow.
I remember my friend Liz, she's like, you should have kept it. I was like, no, God.
In a jar.
Yeah, I don't think that's
on the mantle.
I don't even know if they do that. He told me this can also go on my business card along with I'm too interesting or whatever, was that he had never seen so much muscle mass in a foot before. And I was like, cool. Hercules feet. Yeah, so he took out a bunch of muscle apparently and relieved the pressure. But I had
very normal, you're sitting here with your shoes off. You have very normal looking feet.
You can see my scar. There's
I
my
can.
scar.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
How does that work? Did muscle grow back there?
Dude, I don't even know.
Okay.
I mean, I guess it wasn't enough muscle mass to like make a visible difference, honestly.
Okay.
But he just said there was a ton of muscle and that the fascia didn't expand with it. And that's a good question. I never thought about that. Like, is there now just like hole in my...
Doesn't look like it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel pretty fine in my feet strength.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe
You're just normal now.
Yeah.
You had super feet, and now you have normal feet again.
Yeah, well, super feet to the point of no feet, basically. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, the thing was, I had surgery, both feet, and I had to be in a wheelchair for a while because I couldn't stand on the feet. And I did both feet at the same time so I could make it to Spain. Because this happened at the end of November, and I was supposed to leave in January.
Oh, wow.
And so I was like, you got to do them both at the same time.
Did your climbing shoe size change after that?
That's a good question. I don't think I even knew, like, paid that much. I didn't pay any attention to it. Yeah, probably not. I don't think it would have. My feet seem to be the same size.
Okay.
No, I don't think so. I think all these changes that did not, like, they're locally big, but they're not manifesting at, like, a visual level.
Got it.
But my knee thing, you know, I had that knee injury. It completely went away. It had hurt through the whole time. Like, while I was still dealing with the feet, I was not doing anything but swimming. My knees still hurt. But then as soon as that was fixed, that went away too. It was really weird.
Maybe like a compensation thing.
Yeah, like, so maybe the knee thing was actually a foot thing.
A foot thing. Wow.
It was really weird.
Yeah. It's all connected, man.
Yeah, he told me, he was like, you know, if we didn't find this, you would either have to have your feet amputated because it would not get enough, your feet would die. Like, it eventually would spread and, like, you wouldn't have any blood to any of your... You'd have to get your feet amputated if it got really bad, or you'd have chronic permanent nerve damage, even if we did the surgery, like, 2 months later, because at a certain point, you just damage your nerves. So that was kind of jarring. But also, like, yeah, that's why I say, like, if I didn't have healthcare, I have no idea what my life would look like right now. No idea. And so I think it's just like an atrocity that there's so many people without healthcare. Yeah. I mean, it's just sad.
So I'm curious. I feel pretty pathetic in my experience with injuries. You know, like when I got my first real finger injury, I was like, oh, what a great opportunity. I talked about this with Will Stanhope, actually. Like, what a great opportunity to do all these things that I never do, right? Like, I'm forced to be away from climbing. I always kind of had this bucket list in the back of my mind because I knew it was going to happen someday, or there was a high probability.
Yeah, right.
And then I was so pathetic when it actually finally happened. I was like, I don't want to do any of those things. I still just want to rock climb.
Totally.
Were you able to fill that space during that time when you were stuck and couldn't even go walk your dog or any of these things you wanted to do?
Yeah, I mean, it was really challenging at first. I was like straight up, every classic symptom of depression was like, I slept so much. I slept for so many hours a day. And at first, like, basically all my free time was spent like on Google, like WebMD, foruming, trying to figure out what was going on, and, you know, going to doctor's appointments and things like that. I did take up swimming, which I had taken up with my knee, and I would go to the pool and I would swim for so freaking long. So there was swimming because I didn't hurt, but then that was like the first couple months, and then like by like month 3, my hope was beginning to wither that I would ever be normal again. I just started to like try to re-engage a little bit with society in some ways. I actually started climbing again, and I would do yoga. So I stopped climbing. I stopped doing anything because I was like convinced that it was hurting. But at a certain point I was like, well, it still hurts and I'm not doing anything, so why wouldn't I just do stuff and just deal with the pain? So I started climbing again in the gym, like Planet Granite, Sunnyvale.
How was that with your foot in a shoe?
So the thing was that was the worst was belaying, because I was just standing there and belay. Climbing was kind of okay because I wasn't really putting that much pressure on my feet. Yeah, belaying sucked. So I was probably like a really impatient partner, maybe.
Can't you climb faster?
Yeah, exactly. And I like started doing yoga again and like modifying it to like so I wouldn't do like too much downward facing dog. And at that point, I had cut off a lot of my friends. Like, I went off all the social media. I was like, I can't see this right now. Like, I can't see lives moving forward in any kind of normal way. It's just too painful. So I went off Facebook, and I think that's the only one I had was Facebook. But I turned it off, and I didn't really engage with any of my friends. And then I started engaging with people at the climbing gym, and I started, like, dating again, actually. And that was nice. Like, that, like, helped a lot. So I guess it's kind of depressing now that I think about it because I just like accepted it. I was like, this is life. And there was many dark moments, but I was like, well, if doing nothing is not helping, you might as well start doing something. Because like apparently this is just new. This is just now you. And so this is going to be in your life for the rest of your life, and just deal with the pain. Because the pain itself, I mean, it was bad, but I could deal with it. It was more the fear that I was making it worse.
Got it.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, just those kinds of things. But it was different than my finger injury, you know? Because my finger injury, I was also pretty pathetic because I was like so into rock climbing at that point.
Oh,
you know what I
interesting.
mean? I was like, I remember when I had the finger injury, I'm like, dude, this is nothing compared to my feet. I remember thinking that. I was like, this is like cake compared to that, you know, what happened with your feet. You know what's happening. You got a good doctor. You got all the images done. There's a diagnosis. And yet it was still so hard.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't know if that means like I'm weak or that the injury process is just really difficult. Or both, you know? Maybe both. But I remember like always using the foot
or
story.
I think just shows how much you care.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I mean, it's hard for everyone. Injuries are the worst. Yeah, I mean, they really do teach you stuff, but like, for example, the foot story, I would never put that on anybody. Like, not my worst enemy. I would never like make them go through that. Not that I have any enemies, but like in theory, if I had an enemy, I would never be like, I want this to happen to you. Because it was so hard because I didn't know what was going on. But, you know, I think it taught me actual gratitude in a way that you're never going to learn unless you lose something.
Wow.
That is like something you take for granted.
That's really significant.
Because, you know, you could say like, I'm grateful for, you know, my health. But
Yeah.
if you haven't had your health taken away, you don't really know what you're talking about, in my opinion. And that's how I felt, you know.
Has that stayed with you?
You know, I can call it. Like,
Yeah.
like, you know, but I am a little like, you know, when I was trying Voodoo or whatever, and I would get frustrated on some bad go or whatever, I should look, you know, I think, oh, at least I got to the crag today. You know, at least I was able to jump off this rock. But I think it stayed with me because whenever I think about it, I do feel this like intense feeling of just like you're so vulnerable, you don't even know it. And I think it really shaped some of my decisions that I made, like my life decisions, you know, like the fact that I like now live in a van and I'm like prioritizing certain things in my life because I'm like, this could end. Like, there's no safety net, man. Like, you know, you could like save all your money and, you know, do all these things and like have this perfect life planned out. And then boom, you can wake up one day and your feet feel weird. You know,
putting all that on a bumper sticker.
Yep. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, and so I think it really did shape a lot of the decisions I made later. And it, like my Spain trip was like so much freaking fun because, you know, like I was just like,
hell yeah.
I was so like, it was like medicine to me. You know?
I can walk.
Dude, I can walk, I can go out, I can like
Cute boys
party.
everywhere.
Oh yeah.
Let's do this. I'm dating again.
Yeah, totally.
I'm probably annoying all the listeners.
Yeah,
They're turning it off now.
Yeah, it was a very formative experience that I would never give to anybody because it was really painful, but that totally changed me 100% and made me like, it changed some of the priorities I have in my life for sure. Yeah, and gave me a huge just healthcare. Like, you know, there's a lot of people, and I totally did it myself at one point. You just like, screw healthcare, I don't need it. You know what I mean? Like, I really don't want to go without it like ever again. I just think it's too important, and I think it's a shame. I mean, it's a total shame that we even have to think about it in this country. But that's a total side note.
Yeah.
But it's so important. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing all that.
Yeah, of course.
I'd love to dig into one more topic. Just, it was really interesting to read about and talk to you about, and I think if we just touch on it maybe quickly, it's something that could really help people. So I want to talk about it with you. But you had a really interesting experience with RED-S. Am I getting that right? RED-S?
Yeah, RED-S.
What does that stand for?
Relative Energy Deficiency in Sport.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got you. And it was formerly known as Female Athlete Triad?
Yeah.
Okay. And you wrote a great article about it, and I'll link to that in the show notes if people want to really read your whole story about it.
Yeah.
What is it? Can you give me the quick rundown on that?
So basically, for women, it was called the Female Athlete Triad at first because it was thought to only happen to women. And they changed it to Red S to incorporate men as well.
Okay.
But since I'm a woman, I'll give you the female, like how it happened for me.
Yeah.
So basically, it's called a triad, or was called a triad, because it's comprised of 3 different things. So it's 3 processes that are interrelated. So underfueling, either intentionally or unintentionally. In my case, it was completely unintentional.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't trying to like eat less or whatever. Combined with excessive training. Again, like not really intentional in my case. I just have always been moving around and stuff. Like it's hard to say in hindsight. Maybe I was like overtraining, but I was just like doing my thing, running and climbing and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So those 2 things can lead to like hormone dysfunction,
Mm-hmm.
which in a woman basically manifests itself in the loss period, right? And so those 3 things for women, for men it's different, but for women, because estrogen is so important to bone formation, it could lead to a reduction in bone density. Okay. And that's what happened to me.
Got you. So you wrote a really interesting article, and you mentioned Mina.
Yeah.
Mina Leslie Wiasek. And she wrote a really interesting piece on it as well. And it sounds like it kind of manifests or presents in like these 2 different symptoms. And you guys had very opposite experiences.
Yeah. So a lot of people get really tired, right?
Okay.
I never was tired.
Interesting.
Like, I mean, I'm sure I was tired. I've never been tired in my entire life. Wrong. I just didn't recognize like a sudden decrease in energy or anything like that. But we both lost our period. Mm-hmm. But the thing was, we were both on birth control.
Oh, okay.
So like a lot of different birth controls, like the pill, the IUD, they mask your period, and that's kind of awesome in some ways because you don't have to deal with it. But basically, it's the symptom that I had, the biggest symptom. Like Mina had the energy loss and loss of period. I kind of just had the loss of period, but me and Mina both didn't know for years because we've been on the pill. And when you're on the pill, it's just not, you don't have it. Mm-hmm. So it was like the only symptom I had was completely masked. And so it went on for years without me even noticing. So yeah, it was, the way that I found out was because, I forget like why. I remember. Okay. It's in the article. I went to see like my gynecologist about getting an IUD. I wanted to switch from the pill to the IUD. Mm-hmm. And so she took like a basic history. And she's like, when did you have your last period? And I was like, I don't know, like 5 years ago or something. Mm-hmm. And she was like, I'm like, oh, but it's all good. I'm on the pill. You know, like, don't worry about it.
She's like, what?
She was like, yeah, okay. Like, we're going to give you a bone density scan just in case. And I was like, all right. Cool. So I take the bone density scan, DEXA scan. So a lot of people do it for body composition. Right. But originally it's done to measure bone density. That's what it was built
for osteoporosis.
Yeah, for osteoporosis. So I take the scan, and that was like, cool, check this box, I get the IUD yet. You know what I mean? And then freaking the results were bad, man. The results were bad. It was like, I was thinking it would be totally normal. Right. But it was like, oh, you have like osteopenia. Like you have significant bone loss on like your entire body. Wow. Yeah. And I was like, whoa. It was really scary to read those numbers. Because basically it was like, oh, like basically, like I felt fine, but my body was like completely not fine. You know? And I think Mina avoided that, which is great. Okay. Like she caught it earlier? Or? I think it just meant it's just different for different people. Okay. I mean, me and Mina, like, I met Mina once, and we look different, you know what I mean? But, like, we had the same thing. But I think that, like, Mina, she just looks like a perfectly healthy woman, right? Yeah, totally. I look a little different. I mean, I'm not, like, unhealthy looking, but I tend to put on muscle. Like, it just, I just told you that whole story about how I had to get muscle removed from my foot. But I just found it interesting that we both had it because it can happen to anybody. It can happen to overweight people. It can happen to underweight people. It's just that if your hormones get... Because it's not like you're underfueling to the point where maybe you're losing weight. My weight was pretty stable. It's that you're underfueling to the point where physiological processes are not being promoted. Like your body is like, I don't have enough energy to do this. So yeah, I had that bone density scan, and then they basically told you to gain 15 pounds right away, right? So actually that was before this. Okay.
You had a funny way of measuring how
Yeah.
much weight you needed to
Yeah,
gain?
yeah. So before this whole thing, I wrote that in the article because to impress that, like, I've always been thin. It's just how I am. I eat a lot. Like, I really do, actually. Like, I've been like made fun of my whole life because of how much food I can ingest and still be like pretty thin. And
muscular.
Yeah.
You look lean and muscular.
Yeah, I used to not be so muscular because I was just kind of like, I wasn't really climbing.
Okay.
My legs certainly were, but I was just lean. And I went to a doctor's once. I don't remember what it was about. And she's just like, you need to gain 15 pounds. Like, and I was like, well, thanks, lady. Like, that's cool. And I went to a doctor. I went to the appointment to do a physical for a job. I was doing a vegetation survey job in Tuolumne. Okay. And it's like a physical job, and they make you do a physical. And so then I was like, okay, sounds like I need to gain the weight of a house cat. Like, that's what I asked her. I was like trying to like lighten the mood. And so then we would be like, get fat, gain a cat.
Get fat, gain a cat.
Yeah. And so I did gain those 15 pounds actually. Like, I made an effort to.
Wow.
I don't remember why, but maybe I agreed with her. I don't know. But, so actually my weight was perfectly normal, like within the normal BMI range. BMI is bullshit, by the way. So they didn't tell me to gain more weight. They told me to eat more, which I know it sounds like you should then gain weight, but actually I didn't really gain much weight.
Wow.
Yeah. I just ate more. And,
okay.
Yeah. And I went off birth control for a little bit so I could like monitor it. Period came back. And they're like, you're good to go.
Were you like having to eat to a point that was uncomfortable? Like, were you having to like make yourself eat?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't
Are
like
you
I would
naturally like not that hungry or?
No, I'm naturally pretty hungry.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I would like gorge myself. You know, I would just eat. I would just like make sure I ate like once every 2 or 3 hours. I would eat something. I didn't count calories or do anything like that. And I would have like weird shakes. Okay. Like protein shakes or whatever. And yeah, I mean, it felt weird because I'm like, I'm not hungry. And the common trope is don't eat unless you're hungry.
Right.
But I did.
Yeah, unless you're you and you have to.
Yeah, and the thing that's weird about it is that like I have no idea. Like, I got a rescan a year later and the numbers improved. And they're like, you're going to be fine. Like, you caught it early enough that it's going to be okay. And you're young enough. And that's the other thing, go healthcare. Because, like, if I had caught it when I was, you know, I'm 29 right now. So, and I think I was 27 or something when I first found out about it. If I caught it later, you stop putting bone down at a certain age. And it would have been a lot, like, they would have been like, you're probably going to get osteoporosis later. Wow. So I'm happy that didn't happen.
Anything nutritionally that you've done differently?
Yeah, I totally changed my diet. 100%.
Oh, wow, okay.
It was kind of related, but not really. So I was a vegan for 7 years.
Okay. I remember that in the article because you were curious if that had led into it.
Yeah, I was curious. I mean, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I was a vegan for 7 years, and it's just impossible for me to know when it started because I was on birth control for like my entire for a long time. I was a vegan for 7 years, and when they told me that, you know, I went and saw a nutritionist. Like, she referred me to a nutritionist, and she was like, you can be a vegan. Like, it's possible to be like, that's no big deal. Just make sure you eat all this stuff. And at first I did stick to my vegan diet, but then I eventually just started, for various reasons, I started eating meat occasionally, which turned into frequently, which turned into cheese. Okay. Hence the text. And I changed my diet 100%. And the weird thing is, like, I really don't feel any different.
That was my next question.
I really don't feel different at all.
Yeah.
I didn't really feel all that different when I started the vegan diet.
Interesting.
Like, I think that diet can influence people. Like, you know, some people are really, really influenced by it.
Absolutely.
I really don't feel like, as long as I don't eat, like, donuts and stuff, you know, I kind of, like, make sure I don't eat, like, total junk. Yeah. I don't know. I just don't think it factors that much for me, apparently. I really don't feel all that different. Huh. Yeah. Okay. But I also had, like, a specific craving, like none other, for cheese at one point. Whoa. That I've never had before in my life. You know, at one point I was like, am I pregnant? Because it was so strong.
Because I could really go for a block of cheese.
Yeah, it was such a strong craving.
Wow. A specific type of cheese?
Yeah, it's actually an embarrassing story.
Tell it.
I wrote an article about this one too.
Oh man, I'll link to it.
It was during my 6-week period of no climbing when I hurt my finger. Okay. And I was in South Lake Tahoe by myself. And it was like snowing, and I was just like, I hate this place. Like, because the gym was like not that great. And I just was like not in a good mood. And I walked into the grocery store one day, and I didn't even need anything. I was just trying to kill time. It was like cold, my heater was broken, whatever. And I really had the most specific I ever had for cottage cheese.
Cottage cheese?
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
I know.
Okay.
It's like no one likes cottage cheese.
I'm into it.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, not many people.
I don't eat it plain.
Yeah. Not
I
many
actually
people.
haven't had it in a long time.
Exactly. Not many people like cottage cheese. It's kind of like, okay, you're vegan for 7 years, and the first thing you're gonna eat is freaking cottage cheese.
That is
like,
pretty funny.
It's like not a juicy burger, but like I needed it, and like I somehow my body just knew where the cottage cheese aisle was, and I like found myself there. And before I could think, I like bought a tub. And went to my van and ate it, the whole thing by myself, straight out. And I was like, this is the best thing I've ever eaten in my entire life. Yeah.
That is fascinating.
So something in me needed that cheese.
Right.
And
did it just happen once?
Well, when it happened, then all the floodgates opened. I just started eating everything,
okay.
you know, like all the cheeses. I felt like actually it was so exciting because I was like,
rediscovering cheese.
yeah, I was like, what does like Monterey Jack taste like? So every time I would like try a new cheese, like Parmesan, cheddar, sharp cheddar.
Oh, sharp cheddar is my favorite.
Yeah, it's turned into my
Sharp or
favorite.
sharp
Feta.
white.
I was like, feta. I think I like feta. You know, and the thing was, I stopped eating cheese because I don't do well with dairy.
Okay.
And so when I ate that cottage cheese, I was like, is this really a good idea? Like, you're going to have a tough night, potentially.
How, digestively. Got
yeah.
it. Okay.
But nothing happened.
Interesting.
Yeah, nothing happened.
Huh. You'd felt that way in the past.
I felt that way in the past for sure. And I still
dairy.
don't drink milk. Like, I have like a...
Yeah.
I don't want milk.
Most people don't do well with straight milk.
Yeah.
But cheese, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if like...
It's fermented and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. But I used to not like want to eat cheese.
Interesting.
And now I'm like a cheese fanatic.
Favorite cheese now?
Oh man, I guess it depends on the application. I say like overall it would be sharp cheddar.
Okay.
Yeah, but then like, you know, depends on the application.
Do I want to eat it with a spoon out of the tub?
Yeah, I still eat cottage
cut it
cheese
with a
like
knife.
quite frequently.
Okay.
Yeah. It's funny because when I was a kid, my mom would give me cottage cheese on my spaghetti, which sounds kinda weird right now, but
I've never heard of
and
that.
I think it's like some weird Euro thing.
Huh.
But I think that
I could see it.
I think that I wondered, I was like, is this because I feel like alone and like sad about my injury and like blah blah, like pathetic, that I want cottage cheese? Because
Comfort food.
like, yeah, it's like comfort food because I have an association with it or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's still
Tasted
unknown.
great.
Okay.
I probably have some in my van. It's like a classic food. Like after the day of the crack, I'm like cracker and cottage cheese.
Wow. Nice.
And yeah, like every day at the end of the VRG days,
Uh-huh.
before I would drive it to the bivvy, I would dunk a cracker and some cottage cheese. Yeah. But yeah. And I started doing like protein shakes and things. I still do that. But yeah, and I have no idea. I mean, I got the scan. They're like, you're doing well. I guess I'll get another scan.
Okay.
When
did you get diagnosed with that?
2017?
Okay.
I think it was grad school. Yeah, it was the spring I started grad school. Because I had the UW insurance. And I was like, get an IUD. Because I had like wanted one, but I didn't have insurance for the year between grad school and whatever I was doing before grad school. Yeah. But I have an IUD now. I can't monitor in any way besides DEXA scans like once a year. So it's kind of weird.
That is weird.
It's kind of
It's weird to think that you might not have caught it. Like you might not have known at all until it was like way too late.
I know. It is
That's
scary.
freaky.
Yeah, I think I would suggest like any female athlete. And men too. Like men are affected by it too, but it's different. I don't know. Like that's why they changed the name. I don't know how it manifests in men. I think it's more of an energy, like a fatigue thing for men. But anyways, I would suggest any woman who is athletic and
Go get a DEXA.
yeah, like I mean, talk to your doctor about it for sure.
Okay.
Like if you think at all this could be a thing, because when I saw those numbers, it was scary. I was like, cool, I have a B- in bone health because like 81% of my bone, like I had the bone density of my age, I had 81% of normal, right?
81% of normal.
Meaning, I think I had 79 in my neck. Meaning, like in 20 years, if like I probably would have like break my neck if I like take a minor fall.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
It's scary.
That is scary.
Yeah.
Huh. Any other takeaways from that experience, or anything you would wish you would have known when you were first?
You know, I do wish I would have paid more attention to. I guess I don't know that being vegan caused this. Okay, I have no idea.
Yeah.
And I'm never gonna make that assumption. But I do wish that when I became a vegan, it was for very I was like environmental reasons. I was young. I felt fine. I don't think I like really monitored my health as well as I should have when I made that switch. But I can't say it's because of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I would definitely recommend, like, the only thing I would say is, like, go get the scan done, if possible.
Mm-hmm.
If you at all think it's a problem for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was really scary. And, like, Mina's article does a good job of describing what she did. She did different stuff. Like, she stopped climbing for a long time.
Right.
I didn't really stop climbing at all because I felt fine. I just made sure I ate, like, way too much food. And it's kind of funny because sometimes I still do. But I'm like, maybe I don't have this anymore. I don't really know because I have to get the scan to see that I'm progressing. And I want to be light as a climber.
Yeah.
It's a weird dynamic.
Interesting.
Yeah. Like, sometimes I'll use it as an excuse. This is kind of stupid. I'm like, I'm going to eat this cake for my health.
There you go.
Such bullshit. Such bullshit. I'm going to drink this beer for my health. I need these calories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's for my physiological processes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My bone health.
My bone health.
Yeah.
It sounds like you prefer to add more frequent snacks and meals and stuff versus like try to eat bigger meals.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
just easier for you.
Yeah, it is easier for me, and like then I get to like eat more frequently, and I like eating.
All right.
Yeah, because I get full, and when you're full, you don't really want to eat more. If you're at this constant state,
keep the furnace.
I don't mean to say that I do this now as much as I did when I first got diagnosed. I really don't. Like, cause once like the hormones got my period back and my hormone levels got back, I was like, okay, I just gotta like maintain this, whatever this is, whatever. Like, the thing is, I don't really have like a data like, okay, this weight or this, I don't know, feeling. So it's just kind of a guessing game.
Why did you never track calories? Just didn't seem necessary.
Yeah, I think that when I went to a nutritionist, she asked me what I ate, and she might have done it.
Okay.
So maybe I did in like a indirect way.
Okay.
Yeah, I also just don't really believe in the calorie in, calorie out.
It is so much more complicated.
Yeah, I just don't think it makes sense because I think that if that were true, I would be like enormous.
Right. Your out is just so much.
Yeah, how do you track your out? Yeah.
It's so influenced by so many things.
Yeah.
Hormones are such a big part of it, and it's a really complicated equation.
Yeah,
for sure.
I feel like my body must be really inefficient. And also the other thing with me was that like I just had a really low body fat percentage. Like for some reason my body takes extra calories and packs it on as muscle. A lot of the times.
And puts it straight in those feet.
Puts it straight in the freaking calves, dude. It's so annoying. The one thing I thought about, I was like, cool. When I got in that wheelchair, I was like, okay, I'm finally going to reduce my calf muscle mass. And nothing changed. And now I still have to carry these ankle weights up every damn rock climb I go to. Like, I was always thinking, like...
It must have helped on to bolt on this...
I don't know if that... I really needed these...
Smedges?
Yeah, the Smedges.
The Smedges.
I really doubt it. I really doubt it.
Really?
It was... They're pretty... They're pretty muscular.
Training weight.
Yeah. I wish I could do like surgery and just like get my calf muscle attached to my forearm. I would be such a crusher. I would look really weird. But I think that had to do with it. That's why I had that. Like that had a lot to do with the red S was because like for women for everybody you want to be above a certain body fat threshold. Right. And I was like not at that threshold. Like when I got the DEXA scan I was like at 14%, which I guess for women is pretty low.
Yeah.
And yeah. So I don't know what I'm at now. I should like go check, but that's another thing I could measure, I guess. But then, as an athlete, you're like, cool. I don't really want to increase my body fat percentage here. Yeah. So it's this game, but it's another one of my health fiascos. But overall, I feel like really healthy. That's the thing.
Yeah,
like,
you look healthy. You're climbing well. You've come through it all.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about all the things you crushed before we got into all the...
Right. Well, the red S thing was happening right. Like, I mean, I got diagnosed and I just like kept climbing and my performance didn't change. Okay. All. Yeah. I mean, because like I said, I never had that feeling of fatigue. Maybe if it had lasted longer, I would have. I don't know. So.
Gotcha. You also read a lot.
Yeah, I do.
Let's
How
talk
did you
about.
Even know that?
I found it on your blog. I was snooping around on your blog today.
Okay. Yeah, I read a lot of books.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite or most impactful book from the last year?
From last year. Oh, okay.
Do you read too much? Is that like too big of a...
Actually, I do read
last
a lot.
Last 2 months?
Hold on. I'm thinking about it. The last year most impactful. I can tell you like my favorite book of the last year.
Let's do it.
Which is a book that I don't think
there's no rules.
Many people really. So the books that I really like my favorite books, are books that take ordinary daily life and they make it interesting. Like I guess I'm most impressed by those books. They're not necessarily the most entertaining all the time, but I'm most impressed by an author who could take words that I know what all these words mean and they string it in a sentence that I would never think to string. And then they make this beautiful moment out of going to the store. And one book I really like that does that is Olive Kitteridge, which is this classic fictional book.
Say it again.
Its name is Olive Kitteridge. It's the name of the protagonist in the book.
Olive Kitteridge.
Yeah, and
I'll link to it.
I don't know if that many people it's a Pulitzer Prize-winning book. A lot of people like
I haven't heard of it.
But it's a good book. But I like it for that reason mostly. It's because I just think she does such a good job of describing the kind of meaning in day-to-day things, which I think is just really, most of my life is made up of that kind of stuff, right? Yeah, I'd say that's the favorite book that I read this year, but I feel like I should get my phone and look because I have a list of.
Do you want to?
I have I guess I could. There's a app that I use, the Libby app. You ever use that?
Say it again.
Libby.
No.
So it's
Libby app.
It's if you have a library card, you could get ebooks.
Okay.
To your phone. Mm-hmm. So you can just be anywhere. As someone who travels so much.
Cool.
That's how I.
Do you keep a to read list, a book list?
I do have a to read list. Right now, I'm reading this book called Autumn Light by Pico Iyer, and.
Do you mostly?
Oh yeah, here we go.
Mostly read fiction.
Yeah, I do mostly read fiction lately. It hasn't always been that way. The reason I became vegan. Well, I started as a vegetarian, then I just went to veganism. I was also living in a hippie co-op at the time, but I was Omnivore's Dilemma, Michael Pollan book, and the more I read about that kind of stuff, the more convinced I was that I needed that the environmental impact of animal-derived products was not worth it. Now I eat many animal-derived products.
I think it's a really complex, nuanced topic.
It is.
I've been
really
fascinated by it, and the more I look into it, the less sure I am of anything.
Yeah, totally, and that played a big role in my decision to not be vegan anymore.
Yeah.
That book for sure is the favorite one I read this year, and the sequel.
Okay. Say the name one more time.
Olive Kitteridge.
Olive Kitteridge. Okay.
I definitely also read kind of crappy books sometimes in between holds.
Okay.
I'll hold a book. I'm oh gosh, I can't wait to read this book. And then I have to wait for 5 weeks, and I just go to the always available list, and I just read some not very good book, but
just
it's
mindless fun.
Just
thing.
mindless fun thing. And I'm I really should be doing some work.
A guilty pleasure thing. Do you have any favorites in that sort of
genre? Not really. I don't even think I remember them. I just kind of read them. What was a good one that wasn't guilty pleasure, it was a good book, was that sequel to that Martian book, Artemis.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I do read a bit of nonfiction. One of my favorites is that Merle's Door book. It's about a dog. That's a great book.
Okay.
And I've read the climbing books, but they're not really up there on my top.
Okay.
Yeah, I like reading about climbing, but I don't know. Sometimes it's good to not always think about climbing. I guess.
When you're living in your van and doing it all the time.
Yeah.
I find even in the last few months, my desire to stay up on climbing media and read about climbing and watch climbing has dropped off dramatically. Yeah,
you want a different.
And I also do this, so.
Right, that's a big thing. Yeah, you talk about climbing with people like me.
Which is so fun. Luckily, I'm
for sure. But
I'm only enjoying
I know
this
what you
more
mean.
And more.
Yeah. Although I listen to all your podcasts, so apparently I still consume.
Cool. What about photojournalism? You were into that before, and we didn't even get to your PhD and all that stuff, and I don't think we have time to get to it. It's fascinating to hear you talk about that whole journey. But it sounds like you want to do more writing moving forward.
Yeah.
And you write a lot on your blog, and you started writing a little bit for one of the magazines.
I wrote one article for Rocket Nice. It was just kind of a commentary about living in your van during the coronavirus.
Okay.
And then I wrote another one that no one wanted because it was so... I wrote one about why I kept climbing during the coronavirus.
Okay.
And I sent it to a few magazines. I'm this is really good, but we just can't put this on our website because it's too controversial. I was okay. And then I wrote those pieces about the Red S and the veganism for Gnarly Nutrition, which I really like their stuff.
Cool.
And somehow I got connected with them. And
awesome.
I really like writing. I wanted to be a journalist. I've always wanted to do it. When I was in high school and college, my parents were both journalists before they moved to America.
Interesting.
In different ways. My dad was actually a crossword writer. Yeah, and my mom was a reporter.
That's
and so it's
interesting.
like there was this like I don't know if it's like in my blood or whatever, but like I've always been more drawn to words and photos than like hard science.
Okay.
And somehow I'm in the hard sciences right now. But anyways, that's a whole other story, which, if anyone, like you said, not enough time for sure. So I went to school and I like got it. I was like, okay, I'm going to work at the school paper. At one point I was working for the Chronicle, the San Francisco Chronicle. When I went to Spain, I worked for a paper there. Like I got a photojournalism job there. But I was still pursuing a degree in, I think it was wildlife biology at that time. And conservation biology and Spanish. And basically, to be honest with you, it was a combination of like the reason I stopped doing it, photojournalism. If I don't even remember, was that your question? Sorry, I totally spaced out. The reason is that I stopped doing it was because people like, it is pretty hard to really get into now. Like, be a photojournalist for the newspapers. It's tough. Because of the internet, basically.
Sure.
Like, no one's funded anymore. You have to be like a jack of all trades. And so the self kind of. You have to be really good at freelancing. You have to really hustle. You have to really love it. And I did, and it worked out for a little bit, but I was also getting really intrigued with ecology. And the more I climbed, the more intrigued I got with ecology. And I just ended up going on that path.
Okay.
And then lately I've been less psyched on that path, and to put it lightly. And I started writing again because I've always been I've always written stuff for myself. And I started putting it on this blog. And a lot of it's like kind of intense, kind of different, and I don't know if it's any good, but I just like doing it. Like for some reason, like it helps me process the crap, like the gunk in my head, like the gunk that accumulates. I just gotta scrape it out and write it. And there's stuff I don't publish, but most of the stuff, it's important to me to actually push that button.
That was really interesting to me. You mentioned that when we were on the phone. Why is that?
I think I haven't thought about it too much, but it's almost like an accountability like thing. Okay, here's my experience, and I write it down, and it sounds dark and deep and depressing a lot of the time. Sometimes it doesn't, but sometimes it really does. And I feel like it like validates my feelings or something for me to actually expose it to the public. It's like a way to just not be like, I don't want to say ashamed, but like, yeah, kind of like, I don't want to hide it. Like, I don't want to talk to people about it either. I don't want to like go to like every one of my friends and talked about all my problems, but if I write it down and I publish it, it's almost like I'm addressing it with myself, and then my later self will go and read those things, and I'm having that conversation with myself.
Do you go back and read them?
Yeah, I do go back and read them. Yeah, I do. And sometimes I'm like, whoa, why did you put that out there into the world? And I leave them up though, because to me, it almost, I don't want to use the word cowardly, but it does seem like that. Like if I write this down, I really feel these thoughts, and no one reads my blog anyways. Like nobody besides like my mom and like Chris Widener is randomly an avid reader of my blog. Those two people are the only ones who I know for sure read my blog. And I feel like if I don't publish it, I'm just like hiding. I'm not actually addressing the thoughts. For some reason, I need to publish it. I'm not answering your question very well, but
no, it's really interesting.
There are some stuff that I have published, and then I'm like, oh god, make it private. Like, don't.
Does it help clarify your thinking, like knowing that
Totally.
you're going to share it?
Yeah, it actually does, because that's a good point. That you actually, like sometimes I'll write something.
I got that from someone else. That's why I had a blog for so long.
Yeah, like sometimes I start writing something, and I'm like, is that really true, or is that really how you feel?
Yeah.
And then you really edit a lot more too. Like you reread, you like look at stuff more when you're gonna publish it. And then by doing that, because you have that accountability to the world or your fictional readers or your real readers, aka my mom and Chris Widener, because you have that accountability to them, you spend more time with it. And it just, the more time you spend with it, the more you get out of it, I guess, or the more I get out of it. But yeah, I would love to write more, but it's a tough field to get into for sure. I mean, I write a lot for my work, like science writing, and that's fine too. I just like words. Yeah, I like words. Cool. And I think, maybe it's from my background with my parents. I don't know.
Do you hope to do more freelance stuff for climbing mags and stuff like that?
I mean, I guess so. I think that the stuff that I like to write about isn't the stuff that really gets published in the mags, unfortunately. But I would totally like shift it for, like we were talking about this, like I'm constantly kind of trying to figure out how I want to make a living. And, when you write for someone else, it's different. Like you can't be as picky, right? And that's when I wrote that article about the coronavirus and like climbing during the coronavirus. nobody really wanted it, but I wasn't willing to compromise on it either. And so I was like, I'm just gonna put this on my blog. Boom, bam, bing. But when I wrote about the van life during the pandemic, we made some edits, you know? Like, all opinion was taken out of it to make it not controversial. And when I wrote with Gnarly, that vegan essay that I wrote started off as something very different. But the thing is, like, the relationship I have with that editor, I don't know what her role is at the company. Her name is Shannon. She's an excellent editor, like, really good. And when you have a good editor, it actually, like, amplifies your piece more. So, yeah, I mean, it would be cool to do freelance work, but I don't know if anyone's really interested. But yeah, as like yes, I would like to write more. Yeah, I would like to write more, and I would love to do it for, like, actual, like, a living.
Cool.
Yeah. I don't think that's really going to happen, but it's like, maybe. You never know.
Never know. Go finish your PhD.
God.
Do some more writing. Throw your PhD in the garbage as soon as you get it.
Yeah.
Not using that.
Yeah, it is pretty funny. I'm just, like, doing a PhD. Like a doctorate. Like a big, fat 3 letters after your name. But side story for sure. If anyone wants to talk about it, feel free to. If you're thinking about grad school, hit me up. Especially if you're trying to climb.
Did you write about that on your blog?
I have written about it on my blog, but I write about it in this very
careful way.
Yeah, in this way that's like, yeah, careful, a little bit dubious, a little bit like purposefully not clear. If that makes sense. Just not really because I'm like afraid of something going out there, but because, like, yeah, I mean, if my advisor would read some of this stuff, maybe it wouldn't go over so well. But I'm pretty certain he's never gonna find it. Right. And even if he does, like, I have a good relationship with him. I don't think anything would happen, but I do write about it. I wrote about my first decision to stop doing my PhD, which has changed since well, it's not really changed, but it's on pause right now because of the coronavirus. And yeah, I wrote about it for sure. I was like, wrote about how much I hated it. So it's there. It's just not very clear. It's not like, I got red S and this is what I did. It's like, it's more of like a personal narrative about the emotions I had surrounding it.
Interesting.
It's not like I'm like, this is my thesis. Like, I don't even talk about my thesis, you know? But yeah, so people can refer to those lovely essays if they want to learn more. Just email me.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. What have you been most grateful for lately?
Well, I knew you were going to ask that.
Yeah.
Because you always ask that.
You're on
And I thought about it, and I have 2 things that are tied for first, but I'll just say the first one. So the thing I'm like...
Perfect.
Yeah, so my health, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, with all this story about, my feet and my fingers and red ass and all these kind of close calls, especially in the context right now of, like, the pandemic and all these other social issues going on, I feel extremely grateful to be healthy. I mean, life is just, like, a lot different if you're not healthy. Like, we kind of take it for granted. Like, some of the things you really like in life require health, require good health.
The vast majority of the things. Yeah.
And so when that's taken away from you, like, your like color is gone from the day, you know? So I'm really grateful for that. That's probably number 1.
Okay.
Well, tied with...
What's it tied with?
My partner.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, he's just been great and supportive. And
cool.
We've been traveling van to van.
His name's Tom.
Tom, my partner Tom. I'm very grateful for him. He was really helpful with Voodoo. And he just is my, like, I don't know. He's the person, like, who deals with me before I write these blogs. And he still likes me, I think. So. Yeah, so those 2 things. He gets
the pre-first draft.
Yeah, that's the thing with writing. If I don't do it, my life just feels kind of messy. It's like I need to do it in a weird way. So I'm like, well, I might as well make this a freaking job. But so far, that's not happening. I'm still doing plans.
Do you talk through these sorts of things, or is it just you, like, sharing your thoughts?
With him?
Yeah,
or just in general?
Yeah.
With him, I think I just sort of blurted it out. I think I just spent so much time with him, especially lately, because of the coronavirus. Again, like, you're kind of like, okay, that was, like, especially when we were in the middle of nowhere. You know, and I was really thinking through some big stuff. Like, I had quit the PhD at that time, but then it came back to bite me because of, basically...
It wouldn't let you go.
Wouldn't let me go. That's a good way of putting it. And climbing is becoming so obviously so important to me that I'm like, and because I'm like kind of a anxious person, maybe I don't know how I'm gonna keep doing it. Like, how am I gonna support myself and keep climbing?
It seems like that's been like the big life question.
That's been the big life question lately. Because
Yeah,
I'm like
yeah.
so sure it's what I want, but I don't know how to get it. And that divide gets me really stressed. And so it's just nice having somebody there. Yeah. I wouldn't say that like me and him have these intense conversations about it all the time, but it's just nice to have someone there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Having someone there is nice.
Yeah.
And he's good at that. So
Awesome.
yeah,
Cool.
health and partnerships.
What's next for you in climbing? Sounds like you're ready to kind of pivot
Yeah.
potentially.
Yes and no. Like, I don't think I'm ever gonna stop like sport climbing. I'm not just gonna like turn into like.
Maybe pivot's the wrong word. Maybe switch it up.
Well, so like after I did Voodoo, and actually during Voodoo, I was kind of like, man, I spent like the last 8 months just like chasing down routes, and I loved it. Like I like movement. I like different like that. You know, the thing I like most about climbing is the movement, like unique, hard movement. That's what I like, and like the amount of focus that requires. It turns my like brain that's constantly running and the brain that needs to like vent on these weird blog posts. It turns it off for like 20 minutes, and it's such a therapy. And I think that's why I like do it, or that's why I'm like addicted to it. But you know, I was also like, I have other goals with climbing. I've only done like a handful of hard trad routes. I would love to do that more. I have I want to do a wall, like a proper wall one day. I've barely bouldered.
That's so funny to hear you say things like that.
You know?
So like, I'm sitting here, I'm like, well, you did Cosmic Debris, 13V
Yeah.
trad route. That's pretty cool. Well, you did Thriller, like V10, like
Right.
that's also pretty cool.
Yeah, but in terms of my like, it's
Like the
because I would.
pyramid of
Yeah,
those things?
yeah. It's funny. I was just having a conversation with someone about this and how like pyramid doesn't really make sense as a shape because it's like a 3-dimensional shape. It's more like a triangle or a diamond. But anyways, it was another PhD student, so we were both kind of geeking out. We were like, "This is not right." But anyways, I would love to do those things. Like I really want to, and I really want to. Another thing I really want to do is route development.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. All those things are things I'm thinking about, and I make goals every year, right? And I write them down. I'm very meticulous with my climbing. If I was like as meticulous with my PhD as my climbing, I would have been freaking done by now. Like, with my PhD, I'm like, oh, let's just try this and not write anything down with my climbing. I'm like, need to write down exactly how many attempts, like blah, blah, blah.
Wow.
Like, every
man,
goal.
I wish we had time to dig into that more. That's really
yeah,
interesting.
I'm quite meticulous with my climbing, which is really weird because I'm not meticulous in nature.
Interesting.
You know, so it's the one thing that I am like, yeah, pretty organized about. But anyways, so what's next for me? I'm not really sure because those goals I have found, I don't think I can achieve some of them. Like, for example, maybe not new routing and maybe not a big wall while actively doing my PhD. Because rest days aren't really rest days sometimes, you know, like a PhD is really hard for reasons that aren't obvious. Like, obviously it's hard. Like, it's a lot of work. It's a huge, like, magnum opus thing. But I won't spend, like, 30 minutes talking about why it's so draining some days. But I just think I need the space to really dig into some of those projects that working as much as I am. It's not even that I'm working that many hours. It's just that the work is so kind of mentally exhausting sometimes that I'm just, like, done. Like, I'm not ready to now learn how to haul a bag or whatever. Like, you know what I'm saying? And it fits really well with sport climbing.
Got you.
And so I still have a bunch of sport climbing goals. And so I imagine for the foreseeable future, I will focus on those and maybe like some like moderate, you know, yeah, I used to multi-pitch all the time. So maybe like step up my multi-pitch game in preparation for something like that or some single pitch trad routes. Those things are on my mind. I don't know when they're going to happen. Like for the summer right now, I'm trying to think of a fall goal. So that then I'll like use my summer to prepare for that fall goal.
Okay.
And I'm like, God, man, like everything is like kind of up in the air. Like, I was like, okay, maybe I'll go to Yosemite and I'll like figure out a way to take a month off. Is Yosemite going to be open? I don't know. You know?
Yeah.
So I don't really have a super clear direction right now. I'm more psyched on trying to figure out that whole big life question that allows me to fit those pieces in. So
Cool.
yeah, I think for the next month, I'm going to just keep there's talk of doing stuff on Liberty Bell and things like that with a few people, but nothing is set in stone.
Okay.
Yeah. But the thoughts are there.
All right.
And some hard sport routes that I need to like hire Mike Doyle for. Like some pretty, like I have some like sport routes, like some like life listers, you know.
In Washington?
No, I don't think any of them are in Washington.
Okay.
No. So those are always going to be on my horizon, and I feel like sometimes I just kind of like fall into those, like the bull, I just fell into it. So for all I know, I'll fall into one of those. So yeah, you caught me an interesting time, like right after like a season, right after a big project.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of in that weird zone where I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to change it up.
The bittersweet zone, right?
I'd like to change it up. I would like to change it up.
Okay.
Like I wish, like I want to climb more index, but the season there is like tricky.
Right.
So yeah, hopefully change it up sometime soon, in the context of like answering those bigger questions. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Where can people find you? Are you on social media?
I am not on the Insta Twitter.
Insta
That's what
Twitter.
we call it.
All right.
Yeah, I've kind of gone back and forth on should I be on the Instagram or not, but as of right now I'm not. And I'm not on Facebook either. You can find my blog and which is just my name.blog. And then
Say your full name.
Jasna Hodžić.
Hodžić.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You can just say Hodzik, it's fine. Like, that's normally what I say. And then the about section, I think my email is on there.
Okay.
And I love chatting with people.
Cool.
I don't know what. Yeah, so if everyone really wanted to talk to me, that would be the place. I don't think there's any other way to get to me. Flares.
Flares?
Yeah, you know, flares in the sky.
Oh, okay.
Some nice fruit baskets. I could always use some almond butter.
Cottage cheese.
Yeah, oh my god.
Just
Like
start throwing cottage cheese in the air.
Yeah. But yeah, email.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, Jasna, this has been too interesting.
Really?
Yeah, it's been too interesting. I don't know what I'm going to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, I mumble a lot and I talk fast, so I don't know what you're going to do with it either.
No, I was really, I was so happy that you were willing to sit down,
Yeah,
and
sure,
it was so fun to talk to you on the phone the other day, and I was taking notes for like an hour straight. I was like, oh my gosh, this is fantastic, and I was just cracking up, but I really appreciate you sharing about your injuries and about Red S, and I think a lot of that perspective and specific experience could be really helpful for people, so.
Man, I mean,
Thanks.
I hope that would make it better for me.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, if someone gets something out of it, for sure. And yeah, it was super fun. I love your podcast. It's good.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. All right.
Yeah, it was
This
fun.
has been fun. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hope I didn't mess it up.
Move with the rhythm. Shake it up, stop when the clock hits 13. Sing 1, 2, 3, 4. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it.